Chapter 386. What's there to be afraid of? We're being robbed. Qianhao sighed. The woman beside him, Zhou Ling, didn't look panicked. Get out of the car. The man with the gun had a fierce look on his face. Get out of the car first. Qianhao opened the car door, raised his hands, and got out. Behind him, Rin Chong, Sun Yinqing, and Peng Xian also got out of the car obediently. Looking at the black muzzle on his head, Peng Xian was so scared that his face turned pale and his legs were trembling. When Zhou Ling saw this, she couldn't help but look disdainful. Big brother, what are you doing? Qianhao squeezed out a smile. Leave all the money and jewelry in your car. The leader was a bald man. He was very tall and had a fierce look. He gave a look, and a few subordinates immediately came up to search Qianhao and the others. Qianhao's watch and the wallet in his pocket were quickly found by them. The bald man took advantage of the time when his subordinates were searching Li Changsheng and the others to walk to Zhou Ling's side. He took off the sunglasses on Zhou Ling's face and revealed a sinister smile. Miss, you're quite pretty. As he spoke, he reached out to touch Zhou Ling's cheek. But before he could touch her, he heard a bang. Zhou Ling raised her leg and kicked the bald man's crotch. Ouch! The bald man's face twisted in pain. In the moment Zhou Ling made her move, Qianhao, Rin Chong, and Sun Yinqing rushed out at lightning speed and took down the few people who were searching them. The rest of the robbers who were watching the show reacted and wanted to do something. Rin Chong's body turned into an afterimage. Like a tiger in a flock of sheep, he took down all the robbers in the blink of an eye. The guy who pointed the gun at Qi Xian was about to pull the trigger when he heard a crack. The shotgun was sent flying. At the same time, Rin Chong grabbed his wrist and twisted it with all his might, directly twisting it into a strange arc. When he let go, he was rolling on the ground in pain. His wrist was broken. The whole process only took a few seconds. Peng Xian only reacted when the shotgun on his forehead disappeared. Li Changsheng and Qi Xian didn't have any expression from beginning to end. However, in the eyes of Qianhao and the others, they were clearly scared silly. Put away the things on the ground. Zhou Ling snorted coldly. He was obviously very dissatisfied with Li Changsheng and the other two burdens. Are you scared? Don't worry, it's just a few stupid thieves. This kind of thing happens all the time in this border area. If you come here again in the future, you must hire a few more bodyguards. Otherwise, it will be difficult to move around. Qianhao smiled at Li Changsheng and Qi Xian. He was one of the friendlier ones among them. On the other side, Peng Xian was so scared that his legs were trembling. He said, Young Master Qi, Mr. Li, why don't we go back? Li Changsheng shook his head. Peng Xian's face immediately turned bitter. He felt that this trip to the border had been a nightmare. They sat in the car and continued on their way. Because it was getting dark, they found a small town nearby to stay and rest for the night. They set off the next day. Peng Xian was scared out of his wits yesterday. Today, he was still a little uneasy. When he spoke, it was as if he couldn't even speak properly. This made Zhou Ling even more disdainful. What if we delay our work by bringing these burdens with us? Before they set off, Li Changsheng heard Zhou Ling grumbling. Qianhao smiled. It's not that serious. They don't have a car, and they're all weak. If we don't bring them along, I'm afraid they won't be able to return alive. You're right. I just don't know what these three trash are doing here. Are they here to have fun? They really don't know what's good for them. Zhou Ling grumbled again. She closed her eyes and didn't insist. After walking for another half a day, they finally arrived at the place they were going to this time, Pulse Town. Compared to the small town they passed by earlier, Pulse Town was clearly much more prosperous. Tall buildings and cars could be seen everywhere. Don't look down on it because it's just a small town. It's very famous in this border area. Especially with the upcoming auction, there will be a few major factions coming. We have to keep a low profile and not cause trouble. Before entering the town, Qianhao exhorted Li Changsheng and the rest. Li Changsheng nodded, indicating that he understood. As soon as they entered the town, Li Changsheng felt that the spiritual energy here was very abundant. He knew that the spirit stone vein was indeed in this town. There were still 2 days before the auction. Through the sensing talisman he left on Yingyu, Li Changsheng could confirm that he was staying in a big hotel in this town. Along the way, Li Chongqing basically didn't need to deliberately ask around to obtain a lot of information about Ingyu from Qian Hao. After all, he was the one who held the auction. Ingyu was very powerful at the border. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him an overlord. When Qian Hao mentioned him, there was a hint of fear in his eyes. After entering the town, Li Chongqing and company separated from Qian Hao and company. Zhou Ling was already displeased that they had driven all the way here. Now that they had arrived at their destination, she could no longer thicken her skin and follow them. However, Peng Xian was somewhat unwilling. He was more than willing to follow Qian Hao and company. Qian Hao and company had extraordinary skills, so Peng Xian felt a sense of security. After leaving their team, Peng Xian felt like a sheep that had been thrown into a pack of wolves. His trembling appearance made Li Chongqing regret bringing him along. Li Chongqing and company found a hotel to stay in. In such a small town, even the most high-end hotel was very simple. The room was a little damp. As soon as they entered, there were mosquitoes buzzing in their ears. After asking for a mosquito coil from the inn, Peng Xian had a bitter expression on his face. Li Chongqing and the other two also ignored him. "Mr. Li, we've arrived at our destination. Should we prepare some funds for the auction in 2 days?" Qi Xian asked. Although they were already out of Huaxia, yuan was still a common currency. "No need. We're here to snatch spirit stones. Why should we spend money?" Hearing Li Chongqing's words, Peng Xian, who was about to drink water, was so frightened that his hand trembled and the cup fell to the ground. Ow! Along the way, he had heard about how powerful Ingyu was. He originally thought that Li Chongqing was just joking. He didn't expect that he really had such an idea. "Mr. Li, Ingyu is an executioner. He has more than 200 underlings at the border base. All of them are outlaws. You can't have such ideas." "Shut your mouth," Qi Xian said coldly. He had long been impatient with Peng Xian's weakness along the way. Peng Xian wanted to say something, but when he met Qi Xian's fierce gaze, he finally swallowed his words. Chapter 388. The reason Peng Xian dared to agree to Li Chongqing's request to come to the border was that Li Chongqing had Qi Xian's backing. However, he did not expect that the two of them would not bring a single bodyguard. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. "Young Master Qi, why don't you call your father and ask him to send some men over?" Qi Xian could not be bothered with Peng Xian's pleas. The two of them wandered around the town for 2 days and gained a better understanding of the surrounding environment. On the 3rd day, they arrived at the auction site. It was a luxuriously decorated hall that was like a palace in this town. When Li Chongqing and the rest arrived, they were stopped by a few men in black. Only then did they know that they had to pay 10,000 yuan to enter. Li Chongqing looked at the people coming and going. There were probably thousands of them. 10,000 yuan per person meant tens of millions. However, seeing that the people around him had obediently handed over the money, he took out 30,000 yuan from his bag and gave it to them. Only then did they manage to enter. As soon as they entered the hall, they were greeted by a lively atmosphere. The place was already filled with people in different attire. Other than the Chinese, there were also some foreigners with blonde hair and high noses. Black bodyguards could be seen everywhere. They were muscular and seemed to be the favorite of the rich people here. There was a high platform in the middle with a few chairs on it. However, they were all empty. "Hey, you guys are here too?" A surprised voice was heard. Qian Hao and the rest were sitting not far away from Li Chongqing and the rest. "Brother Qian, are you guys here to bid for something too?" Qi Xian walked to Qian Hao's side and sat down. Among the few of them, Qian Hao and Sun Yinqing's attitude was better. Rin Chong and Zhou Ling were more aloof. Therefore, Li Chongqing and the rest usually talked to Qian Hao and Sun Yinqing. "Yes, but I don't know what kind of stones they are. If they're useful, we'll bid for some. If not, we'll just watch the show. What about you guys? Are you going to bid for something too?" "We'll see." Qi Xian smiled and did not answer. Qian Hao looked around and said in a low voice, "Listen to my advice. It's best if you don't auction anything. Don't show off your wealth in this kind of place. Once you show off your wealth, who knows how many eyes will stare at you. Just watch the show. What about you?" Qi Xian asked. We're different from you. With our skills, anyone who wants to attack us will have to weigh their own strength first. Understood. Qi Xian nodded. After waiting for about half an hour, the field suddenly fell into silence. A group of people appeared from the passage inside and walked up to the high platform. Every time one of them took a seat, there would be a burst of discussion from below. Isn't that Boss Zhang Wei? I heard that he's part of the gem auction this time. Isn't that big boss Wen Peng Feng? I didn't expect him to appear too. As the surrounding people discussed, the big shots appeared one after another. The last one to take the stage was Yingyu. Yingyu is the most powerful person within a radius of 1,000 miles. Li Changsheng also immediately understood that Yingyu intended to auction off the spirit stones in the spirit mine, but he did not dare to take it all by himself. Thus, he joined forces with many big shots at the border and divided the profits according to the ratio. This way, he could ensure that nothing would go wrong. This guy is a smart person. Unfortunately, he offended me. That's the worst part about him. Li Changsheng snorted coldly. At this time, the auction had officially begun. When Yingyu appeared, the field gradually fell into silence. Everyone knew that the show had officially begun. Today, we're holding an auction to auction only one thing, which is a magical stone that we've just discovered. Because we don't know its name, we'll call it the God Stone for the time being. As soon as Yingyu finished speaking, there was a commotion below. What God Stone? Could it be a scam? It's advertised that it has all kinds of effects. Why haven't I heard of this stone? I came all the way here. Please don't let it be a farce when the time comes. As soon as they heard the name, it attracted a lot of questioning voices. However, Yingyu's face always had a faint confidence. When the crowd's discussion gradually died down, he waved his hand and asked someone to bring up a pot of withered flowers. Perhaps everyone has doubts about this God Stone that I mentioned. Then, before the auction officially begins, I'll do a small experiment for everyone. As he said that, he asked his subordinate to put the pot on the table and then said, This pot of flowers hasn't been watered for 10 days. As you can see, its leaves are already withered and yellow. It's going to die at any time. Then, in our advertising, I'm sure everyone has already seen the function of this God Stone. It can slow down aging. However, words are no proof. Now, let's use the real thing as proof. As he said that, he solemnly took out a white stone from a tray. It looked like a jade filled with impurities. At this moment, many people stretched their necks and looked curiously at the stage. I wonder what he's going to do, someone curiously asked. However, they saw Yingyu put the white stone next to the pot. The field fell into silence. Time passed by minute. Just when many people were about to lose their patience, someone suddenly exclaimed, Look, that pot of flowers is slowly coming to life. Everyone widened their eyes. They saw that the withered leaves were slowly falling off. In the place where the leaves fell off, new buds grew out, and they were constantly growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. 10 minutes later, the flower that was about to wither was once again bright and fresh. It even gave birth to a new flower bud. Amazing! Many people were dumbfounded. This is the function of the God Stone. It can release a special substance. If people wear it for a long time, their lifespan can be extended to 200 years. As soon as Yingyu finished speaking, the field was completely in an uproar. Of course, there were also people who questioned whether it was a magic trick. I didn't expect Yingyu to figure out some functions of the God Stone. Li Changsheng thought in his heart. Flowers and plants were spiritual. They absorbed the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to grow slowly. Now, putting the God Stone next to the withered flower was like giving a thirsty person a bottle of spring water and a bowl of white rice. After eating, of course, he would be able to recover his vitality. Wearing the God Stone was indeed beneficial to one's physical and mental health. However, extending one's lifespan and being able to live to 200 years was pure nonsense. However, after the experiment, just now, even if Yingyu was talking nonsense, some people believed him. In particular, the eyes of some old rich businessmen were shining. Seeing that the effect he expected had been achieved, Yingyu waved his hand and asked someone to take the pot down. Then he placed the first God Stone there and said the starting price of the first God Stone is 1 million. What? 1 million? The people below were all shocked. 1 million for a stone? Chapter 389. 1 million. Before many voices of doubt could be heard, someone raised his hand. 2 million. Another middle-aged man directly raised the price. Immediately, all the voices of discussion shut their mouths. Li Chongqing couldn't help but nod. This Yu really knows how to do things. The two people who bid at the beginning are obviously shills. However, everyone was used to following the trend. After the two people raised the price, a third and fourth person immediately joined the bidding. Soon, one spirit stone rose to more than 3 million. Should we bid for it? Qianhao looked at his companions beside him. If this spirit stone can really revive a withered flower, it's really a treasure. Even if it's 5 million, I'm willing to buy it. Zhou Ling said. At this moment, a middle-aged man with a strong aura said, 5 million. Behind him stood a row of black bodyguards. One look, and one could tell that they were not ordinary people. That's Su Mingho, President Su. I didn't expect that even he would participate in the bidding. Zhou Ling, who was about to raise her hand, hesitated when she saw the other party stand out. Sister Zhou Ling, I didn't expect Su Mingho to also bid. What should we do? Not only Qianhao, but Rin Chong and Su Yinqing also looked at Zhou Ling. Zhou Ling gritted her teeth and raised her hand. 6 million. As soon as she said that, countless people looked over. Even Su Mingho couldn't help but frown. Su Mingho was a well-known figure at the border. He didn't expect that someone would dare to bid with him. However, when he saw that it was Zhou Ling, he immediately smiled. So it's Miss Zhou. I'll let you have it then. Zhou Ling's face immediately lit up with joy. Didn't you say that this thing is worth 5 million? Why do you want to spend 6 million to buy it? After hearing Qi Xian's words, Qianhao sighed and said softly, Sister Zhou Ling's brother has a strange disease. His muscles are shrinking every day. That's why he came all the way here this time. He wants to auction a spirit stone to see if it has any effect on his brother's condition. Hearing Qianhao's words, Qi Xian and Li Chongsheng couldn't help but nod. Thinking about how cold Zhou Ling had been along the way, they could understand. She was already in a bad mood. The starting price of the second spirit stone is 1 million. After the first spirit stone was auctioned off, a waitress dressed in a cheongsam brought the second spirit stone onto the stage. Yingyu owned an entire spirit stone mine, but he sold the spirit stones one by one. Every single one of them could fetch an extremely high price. After the entire mine was auctioned off, the other party would probably become a super rich person. 2 million. This time, Su Mingho spoke again. This Su Mingho's influence in the borderlands was obviously extraordinary. Once he opened his mouth, there was not even a single person bidding. Su Mingho seemed to be very satisfied with the effect of this halo, and his face showed a bit of pride. 2 million going once, 2 million going twice. Although Yingyu was a little unhappy that the second spirit stone was only sold for 2 million, he knew that not every spirit stone would be like the first one. Moreover, with Su Mingho's prestige at the border, even if he only added 100,000, no one would dare to compete with him. This kind of situation would definitely continue to happen in the future, and Yingyu had already expected it. 2,000,003. Just as the hammer was about to hit the ground, a voice suddenly rang out, 3 million. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man raising his hand with a calm expression. When he saw the young man's face clearly, Yingyu's pupils could not help but shrink. The one who bid was Li Chongsheng. So it's Mr. Li. I didn't expect you to come here. The reason why Yingyu knew the value of spirit stones was that he had guessed it from Li Chongsheng. Now that he saw Li Chongsheng, he did not think too much. Instead, he was quite happy. Finally, someone stood up to compete with Su Mingho. At the same time, he sneered in his heart. Li Chongsheng, a person from the mainland, came to the border to compete with Su Mingho. He probably would not even know how he would die. Sure enough, Su Mingho's face suddenly showed some coldness. Someone actually dared to compete with him. He glanced at Li Chongsheng indifferently and raised his hand again. 3,200,000. 5 million. As soon as his voice fell, Li Changsheng raised his hand again. This time, Su Mingho's face completely changed. There was also a moment of silence in the field. On the other side, Qian Hao and the others also looked at Li Changsheng with strange eyes. Especially Qian Hao, who said in a low voice, "Brother, I told you not to bid rashly. The border here is not like the mainland. It's not something that can be done with money. Even if you bid for spirit stones, I'm afraid you won't be able to take it away." Li Changsheng only smiled at this. 6 million. Su Mingho's face was very ugly. In front of so many people, he was suppressed by Zhou Ling last time. He and Zhou Ling had met a few times and could be considered to have given Zhou Ling face. But now, if he was suppressed again, it would be a little embarrassing. 8 million. Li Changsheng opened his mouth again. There was a sudden uproar in the surroundings. I wonder who this kid is. He actually dares to go against Su Mingho. He's really bold. In the border, Su Mingho is known as the Wolf King. He symbolizes ferocity and ruthlessness. Those who offend him will be torn to pieces by him. Friend, are you sure you want to compete with me? Su Mingho stared at Li Changsheng's position with a sinister look in his eyes. What? You're not allowed to bid at the auction? Is your family the one who owns it? Li Changsheng replied faintly. Everyone in the hall widened their eyes. He did not put Su Mingho in his eyes at all. Good. Very good. Su Mingho suppressed the anger in his heart. Many people were constantly sizing up Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng was considered to be completely famous this time, but there were more looks of pity. They knew that there would be a bloody scene once the auction ended. Mr. Li is indeed generous. Ingyu chuckled. With a wave of his hand, he asked his subordinates to send the spiritual stones to Li Changsheng. At the same time, he prepared a POS machine for Li Changsheng to swipe his card. However, after Li Changsheng accepted the spiritual stones, he did not intend to swipe his card. Instead, he slowly stood up and looked at Ingyu. Many people's faces were filled with curiosity. They did not understand what this ordinary-looking young man was going to do. I wonder if Mr. Li has anything to say? Ingyu also smiled faintly. Last time in Qingzhou, Ingyu did not put Li Changsheng in his eyes at all. Now that they were at the border, his territory, he naturally did not have any worries. I was just joking with everyone just now. Li Changsheng said faintly. Everyone was confused. Could it be that he knows Su Mingho's background, so he wants to give up the bid? But he has already bid 8 million. I'm afraid even Ingyu will not give up now. On the other side, Su Mingho also sneered. He thought to himself, it's a little too late for this kid to realize it now. However, Ingyu's face turned cold. Mr. Li, I'm calling for an auction. It's very formal. Do you think I'm playing house? What I mean is, I'm bidding for my own things. I don't need to pay at all. Li Changsheng smiled faintly. Everyone was confused. What do you mean? Even Ingyu frowned. He did not know what Li Changsheng was going to do. Could it be that Mr. Li wants to buy the entire mineral vein? Ingyu recalled what happened in Qingzhou last time, shook his head, and said, it's just that I'm afraid Mr. Li can't afford it. Buy? Why should I buy it? I heard that the borderlands are chaotic. You can only get what you want with your fists. In that case, I'd like to snatch it for once. What? As soon as those words came out, it immediately caused an uproar. Chapter 390. The entire place was in an uproar. It was as if a bomb had been thrown into deep water, causing everyone to feel dizzy. Ingyu's face turned completely cold. Even a few bosses on the high platform stood up one after another. The reason why Ingyu was willing to share the profits of the spiritual mine with the other bosses was to prevent others from snatching it from him. In his opinion, the few bosses in the borderlands were enough to intimidate any forces. However, he did not expect a guy from the mainland to spout such arrogant words here. Mr. Li, I didn't expect you to come here from the mainland with such an idea. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Do you have the ability to do so? Ingyu sneered. You'll find out soon enough whether I have the ability or not. As Li Changsheng finished speaking, Qi Xian stood up and stood beside Li Changsheng. Pang Xian was so frightened that he collapsed on the chair, his lips trembling. Which of these bosses from the borderlands did not bear the burden of many lives? Li Changsheng openly declared that he wanted to snatch their things. In his opinion, he was simply courting death. On the other side, Qian Hao, Zhou Ling, and the rest were also dumbfounded. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never have thought that Li Changsheng and the rest, whom they saw as a burden, would be so audacious. This is simply crazy. Ingyu gave the order, and suddenly, countless burly men rushed out from all directions, each holding a submachine gun in their hands. Did you discover any other enemies? Ingyu asked one of his subordinates beside him. The subordinate shook his head. How is that possible? Ingyu was puzzled. In his opinion, since Li Changsheng dared to come to his territory to snatch things, he must have gathered a lot of people. However, only Li Changsheng and Qi Xian stood out. This was too strange. Two people came to snatch things from them. Wasn't this a joke? When Li Changsheng and Qi Xian stood out, countless of Ingyu's subordinates appeared and surrounded them. Qian Hao and the others looked on in shock as they calmly faced Li Changsheng and Zhao Fu. At this moment, Li Changsheng's face did not change in the slightest as he faced the black muzzles of the guns. It was as if the guns aimed at him were not submachine guns that could take his life in an instant, but were merely children's toys. Li Changsheng, you really have guts. You actually dare to come to the outside of our borders and behave atrociously. Why don't you ask around about the influence Ing Xiao, have here? After confirming that there were only Li Changsheng and Qi Xian, Ingyu sneered. What? Ingyu, have you forgotten what I said to you the last time you were in Qingzhou? Don't. Ing Xiao only has a few hundred brothers. Even if you have an army, you are still an ant in my eyes. Li Changsheng said indifferently. Ha! What an arrogant tone. Ingyu was amused by Li Changsheng's words. The other big shots were speechless as well. They had seen boastful people before, but they had never seen someone who boasted to such an extent. Did he think he was Zhao Zilong of Changshan, going in and out of an army of 100,000 alone? Ha! Li Changsheng, you were lucky that I didn't twist your head off in Qingzhou the last time. How dare you come to the borderlands and behave atrociously? I don't think you can go back alive. Ingyu snorted and signaled with his eyes. Immediately, his subordinates approached Li Changsheng with spears in hand. There were still many people participating in the auction, so they would not open fire unless they had no other choice, for fear of hurting the people around them. Qian Hao, Zhou Ling, and the others were all dumbfounded. However, they heard Li Changsheng say contemptuously, "Do you think you can scare me with a few lousy guns?" Lousy guns? Ha! Then I'd like to see if these lousy guns can kill you. The leader, a burly man with a long barrel shotgun, walked to Li Changsheng's side and pressed the muzzle against Li Changsheng's forehead. Many people's hearts tensed up, and some timid girls turned their heads to the side. Because once the other party pulled the trigger, Li Changsheng's head would be turned into a sieve. Even Qi Xian's heart was in his mouth. Although he had witnessed Li Changsheng's magic with his own eyes, this kind of traditional shotgun had great lethality at close range. With a gun pressed against the skull, even the most powerful martial arts expert would be in danger of death. I said, this is just a lousy gun. Li Changsheng slowly raised his head, grabbed the gun shaft, and then slowly exerted force with his palm. The barrel kept bending in his hand, and finally, it was bent into a U shape. How much strength did he have? The surrounding people stared with their eyes wide open. The burly man with the shotgun was also completely dumbfounded. His shotgun was not a toy, but it was bent by Li Changsheng's hand. Just now, he was curious about what Li Changsheng was going to do, so he didn't pull the trigger. But now, he didn't dare to pull the trigger again. The barrel was bent. If he pulled the trigger, it would explode. If he couldn't hit the enemy, he would be seriously injured by the explosion. Hurry up and take him down. The burly leader ordered several subordinates who surrounded him. Li Changsheng's move just now had completely shocked him. He didn't dare to underestimate Li Changsheng in the slightest. Of course, until now, he didn't think Li Changsheng could really block a bullet. After all, in the era of firearms, no matter how powerful a martial artist was, he couldn't block a bullet. As soon as the burly man's voice fell, he hurriedly let go of the shotgun in his hand and stepped back a few steps, keeping a sufficient distance from Li Changsheng. A person like Li Changsheng who could bend a gun barrel with his bare hands was definitely not to be underestimated. In a short distance, the danger was still very high. However, in the next moment, before those people could completely surround him, Li Changsheng's body turned into an afterimage. Then, only a kacha-kacha sound was heard. The guns in the hands of the 7 or 8 people who surrounded him disappeared without a trace. By the time they reacted, they saw that they were all in Li Changsheng's hands. Li Changsheng threw the pile of guns at his feet with a clatter. At this moment, the surprise on everyone's faces was even stronger. They had heard of bare-handed weapons, but to be able to snatch 7 or 8 guns in such a short period of time like Li Changsheng, this speed and technique was simply unbelievable. I didn't expect him to be a hidden expert. Zhou Ling sighed. Qian Hao, Sun Yinxing, and the others were also surprised. They were all martial artists, and their strength wasn't low. But after seeing Li Changsheng's skill, they knew what an expert was. On the high platform, Yingyu's face also changed, but soon revealed a sneer. No wonder he dared to come to the border alone to snatch things from me. So he's a martial arts expert. But what era is it now? You martial artists have long been outdated. Yingyu made a gesture. Immediately, a dense crowd of subordinates appeared, and countless muzzles locked onto Li Changsheng's position. At the same time, there were a few people carrying rocket launchers and 3 Barrett sniper rifles aimed at Li Changsheng's head. When Peng Xian saw this scene, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. The faces of Qian, Hao, and the others also changed. Although these weapons were aimed at Li Changsheng and Wang Chong, the attack range was extremely wide, especially the rocket launchers. Once they were fired, no one within 20 meters would be able to survive. Many people hurriedly ran away from Li Changsheng, and Zhou Ling, Qian Hao, and the others also turned to run. At this moment, Yingyu waved his hand and shouted, "Blast him to smithereens." Yingyu was also afraid. Just now, Li Changsheng's method of snatching guns with bare hands had shocked him. So he knew that he must not let Li Changsheng get close to him. So even if there were many guests around Li Changsheng, he couldn't care less at this moment. As his voice fell, several rocket launchers were fired at the same time, and flames soared into the sky. At the same time, machine guns and sniper rifles were fired at the same time. Almost instantly, they arrived at Li Changsheng's location. It's over. Qian Hao, Zhou Ling, and the others' eyes were filled with despair. Under such a concentrated attack, they couldn't think of any hope of survival. Chapter 391. Today, I'll show you what an immortal magic art is. Li Changsheng raised his hand and drew a semicircle in front of him. Then he saw the roaring cannonballs and the densely packed bullets that were flying towards him were all taken into his arms. Then, following the guidance of his hand gesture, it suddenly flew to an area where there was no one. Boom! With a loud bang, a deep pit was blown out of the ground. The raging fire made the ground shake violently. Qian Hao and the others, who were in despair, were completely stunned by the scene in front of them. Is he still human? Whether it was Yingyu on the high platform or the people who came to the auction below, they were all dumbfounded at this moment. They had never thought that someone would be able to block a bullet, let alone in such a strange way. Ghost! He's not a human. One of the men holding a submachine gun was completely scared out of his wits and pulled the trigger subconsciously. Da-da-da-da. A series of crazy strafing shots greeted Li Changsheng's body. However, Li Changsheng didn't move at all. Those bullets just touched the corner of his clothes and seemed to have lost the power to move forward. Bam! Bam! All of them fell to the ground. At the next moment, Li Changsheng took a step forward and grabbed the neck of the man holding the submachine gun and threw him hard. The man was directly thrown out like a scarecrow and fell 5 meters away, stirring up a cloud of dust. What should we do? Several big shots next to Yingyu asked in a trembling voice. Even though they dominated the borderlands, their hands were stained with the blood of countless people. But at this moment, facing Li Changsheng, who didn't look like a human, they felt trembling from the bottom of their hearts. At this time, Li Changsheng's eyes also fell on the high platform and fell on Yingyu. Yingyu, the spirit stone mine belongs to me. Do you have any objections? As his voice fell, the whole place fell into a dead silence. One spirit stone in the spirit stone mine could be sold at a high price of several million yuan. It could be said that with the spirit stone mine, Yu and the others would have more money than they could spend in their lifetime. They would no longer have to do business with bloodshed. But did he dare to reject Li Changsheng? Even a rocket launcher couldn't do anything to Li Changsheng. Who else in the world could block Li Changsheng's attack? If he refused, he would probably die without a burial ground in the next moment. At this moment, countless gazes fell on Li Changsheng. Shock, awe, and deep shock. I didn't expect him to be an immortal. Zhou Ling laughed bitterly. To think that he had felt that Li Changsheng was a burden along the way. At the side, Qi Xian also revealed a bitter smile. Even though he had a high estimation of Li Changsheng's strength, he still did not expect it to be so terrifying. Li Changsheng stood there, his face extremely calm. He was waiting for Yu to make a decision. This was also the last chance he was giving Yu. To others, Yu is an ambitious and ruthless person in the borderlands. However, in the eyes of Li Changsheng, he was just an ant. If it weren't for the fact that he had discovered the spiritual stone vein, which could be considered a little contribution, Li Changsheng wouldn't have wasted his breath on him. Under Li Changsheng's gaze, Yu's legs trembled. However, he still took a deep breath and said, "I was the one who discovered the spiritual stone vein. Mr. Li, no matter how strong you are, you can't take it by force." With that said, he looked at the subordinate who was thrown out by Li Changsheng. His eyes gradually revealed some calmness. This was because he realized that from the beginning to the end, no matter how shocking Li Changsheng's methods were, he had not killed a single person. In his opinion, since there was such a terrifying existence in the world like Li Changsheng, there must be a power that restrained them, making them not dare to casually kill people. Otherwise, the world would be in chaos. In fact, Yu's guess was correct. In fact, there was indeed an organization that restrained cultivators. However, Li Changsheng never took those restrictions seriously. Hearing Yu's words, Li Changsheng's eyes revealed a bit of coldness. "So, you're saying that you want money more than your life?" Li Changsheng said as he walked step by step towards the high platform. "Yu, you should have died back then for going back on your word in Qingzhou. However, the heavens are virtuous, so I didn't kill you. Since you're still so stubborn, I can only send you on your way." At this moment, Li Changsheng had already stepped onto the high platform and raised his hand. "I don't believe that you dare to kill me." Yu's eyes revealed a ferocious light like that of a wild beast as he stared at Li Changsheng. "You don't believe me? What does that have to do with anything?" Li Changsheng's eyes revealed a bit of pity, and then he gently clapped his hand down. The speed of his palm was not fast, but in an instant, Yu's face revealed a look of horror. This was because he felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. "Kacha!" The sound of bones breaking was heard. Li Changsheng's palm also came down completely. Then, blood flowed out of Yu's 7 orifices as he fell straight to the ground dead. The remaining few big shots on the high platform were scared out of their wits as they hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged, "Mr. Li, please spare our lives. Mr. Li, we're willing to hand over the spirit stone mine and offer it to you." Li Changsheng ignored them and looked at the many tycoons below the stage. At this moment, everyone that he glanced at, be it the billionaires or the big shots of the underworld, lowered their heads. In the scene of thousands of people, only Li Changsheng stood proudly. Below, Zhou Ling and the rest looked at Li Changsheng on the stage and couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts, "He's just like a god." Qi Xian seemed to have made some kind of decision. Today, Li Changsheng's demeanor made him finally understand why his father respected this person so much. Li Changsheng looked at the tycoons who lowered their heads and suddenly felt bored. He waved his hand and said, "Get up." Then, he whispered a few words to the few big shots. The few big shots at the border nodded like chicks pecking at rice. After giving the order, he pointed at a very magnanimous middle-aged man and asked, "You're in Pengfeng, right? Where's the spirit stone mine? Take me there." "Yes." When Pengfeng nodded hurriedly, he asked his subordinate to drive the car over. Li Changsheng waved at Qi Xian and got in the car with him. They headed west of the town. It was not until the car disappeared from everyone's sight that the crowd gradually became noisy. Zhou Yingling and the rest were about to leave with a spirit stone that they had won in the auction. At this moment, they saw a big shot at the border walking towards them with 4 spirit stones in his hand and handing them to Zhou Ling. Mr. Li said, "Thank you for driving him all the way here. These 4 spirit stones are his thanks to you all. Keep it as a souvenir. Also, this is a pill. Mr. Li asked me to give it to Miss Zhou Ling. He said it might help your brother's condition." Zhou Ling and the rest were stunned. Li Changsheng actually gave them spirit stones that cost millions each. Especially Zhou Ling. She didn't care about spirit stones, but something that could cure her brother's illness was simply too precious to her. After being stunned for a long time, she finally reacted and hurriedly took the items. Her fingers were trembling. After giving the items to Zhou Ling and the rest, the man turned and left. Qian Hao sighed from the side. This Mr. Li is really a righteous person. At this moment, Peng Xin Sai, who had been unconscious, slowly woke up and looked around blankly. He said, "Am I already dead? So this is what the king of hell's palace looks like." Chapter 392. Under the leadership of the border boss, when Peng Feng, Li Changsheng finally saw the spirit stone vein. As soon as he got close, he could feel the rich spirit qi. With so many spirit stones, it was simply a cultivation paradise for Li Changsheng. "I'm going to cultivate in seclusion here. Qi Xian, bring Peng Xian back to Huaxia first," Li Changsheng said to Qi Xian. Qi Xian nodded. In his eyes, Li Changsheng was no different from a god. After getting Wen Pengfei to seal off the area within a 10-mile radius, Li Changsheng officially entered seclusion. This was the first time he could cultivate to his heart's content since his rebirth. An entire spirit stone vein's rich spirit qi was incomparable to other places. The 9 transformations of the divine demon was a body-tempering technique that used spirit stones to temper the body, expand the meridians, and strengthen the mind. Every time he completed a transformation, his strength would increase by several folds. Li Changsheng sat cross-legged in the mine. All the spirit qi in the surroundings was extracted, forming a hazy mist. It entered his body through countless pores and finally condensed in his dantian, forming a small spirit qi vortex. Then, it was converted by his dantian into the purest true essence. It flowed continuously through his meridians and was absorbed by his body. This process continued, and Li Changsheng's skin became more and more translucent, like a piece of jade. Just like that, he cultivated in this cycle for 10 days. On this day, the mist that had filled the entire mine instantly disappeared, causing Li Changsheng to suddenly open his eyes. There was a glimmer in his eyes, as if his entire person had changed. Peak of the innate realm. Li Changsheng sighed. In the end, he still couldn't break through to the Vajra realm. He slowly stood up and walked out of the cave. The moment he stepped out of the mine, countless spirit stones inside were instantly crushed. The entire mine collapsed with a loud bang. Hearing the sound of the mine collapsing, Wen Pengfeng and a group of men hurried over. When they saw Li Changsheng standing there with his hands behind his back, they hurriedly went forward to greet him. "Mr. Li, you've finally come out of seclusion. Have you been guarding the area all this time?" "Yes." Wen Pengfeng nodded respectfully. "Not bad." Li Changsheng nodded. "I'll remember your contribution. Find me a quiet place." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Wen Pengfeng didn't dare to neglect and quickly found a large villa for Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng stayed in the villa. Wen Pengfeng did not dare to disturb Li Changsheng. He stayed in a courtyard next to Li Changsheng and guarded him every day. After Li Changsheng had broken through to the peak of the Xiantian realm, he took out the Heart's Will sword that he had snatched from the Huashan sect and refined it again. 3 days later, when Li Changsheng dripped a drop of his blood essence onto the Heart's Willing sword, a red light flashed across the sword's body. Then, the treasured sword felt as if it was connected to Li Changsheng's heart. It was only now that the Heart's Will sword had truly recognized him as its master. Li Changsheng gently pointed his finger, and the Heart's Will sword soared into the sky. He withdrew his hand, and the sword light instantly flew back to his side. It was as if it had become a part of his body. With this Heartswell sword in hand, I can even kill a peak-stage Vajra realm martial artist easily. Li Changsheng muttered to himself. He kept the treasured sword and tidied his clothes. Then, he pushed open the courtyard's door and walked out. Soon, Wen Pengfeng, who had received the news, rushed over. "Mr. Li, if you need anything, just let me know," Wen Pengfeng said respectfully. "I don't have anything else. You must have had a hard time guarding me these days. If you have anything to ask of me, just say it." Wen Pengfeng wasn't the only big shot at the border. Everyone else was afraid of Li Changsheng's means and wanted to stay as far away from Li Changsheng as possible. Wen Pengfeng was the only one who took the initiative to serve Li Changsheng. It was obvious that he had something to ask of Li Changsheng. Originally, Li Changsheng didn't like to poke his nose into other people's business. However, Wen Pengfeng had worked hard these days. On account of his sincerity, Li Changsheng decided to give him a chance. At this moment, Wen Pengfeng suddenly knelt down in front of Li Changsheng. "Mr. Li, I beg you to save my son's life." "Your son?" Li Changsheng couldn't help but frown. "Could it be that your son is the same as Zhou Ling's brother? Is he also sick?" Li Changsheng thought that Wen Pengfeng wanted him to treat his son's illness because he had given Zhou Ling a bottle of elixir pills. However, Wen Pengfeng shook his head. "That's not the case. My son has been captured, and the other party wants me to ransom him with 1 billion yuan. I originally planned to sell the Spirit Stone mine with Ingshao to raise the money. However, the mine is gone now, and I really have no other choice. So that's the case. All right, I promise you. Get up." Li Changsheng nodded. "Did the other party set a deadline?" "Yes." Wen Pengfeng's face lit up when he heard that Li Changsheng was willing to help him. "The other party set a deadline of 1 month. Now, there are only 7 days left. Then let's go now. After I'm done with you, it's time for me to return to China." "Yes." Wen Pengfeng immediately went to make the arrangements. The two of them took a commercial vehicle and crossed hundreds of kilometers to arrive at a town. There weren't any particularly large cities in the borderlands. Most of them were small towns. In this town, Li Changsheng felt that there were many people secretly monitoring them from the moment the vehicle entered. The vehicle stopped in front of a villa. Immediately, more than 10 figures surrounded them. These people were holding advanced firearms in their hands. "Please raise your hands. We want to search you," a middle-aged man in the lead said coldly. Wen Pengfeng couldn't help but look at Li Changsheng. Seeing that Li Changsheng nodded, he said in a low voice, "Mr. Li, I'm sorry." Several people found a few guns on Wen Pengfeng and his men. After making sure that they didn't have anything else on them, they let them in. Inside the villa, a man with an elegant aura was sitting there drinking tea. He gave off a mysterious feeling. Behind the man stood a brawny man with a fierce face. The brawny man was shirtless and had explosive muscles all over his body. There was a bloody wolf head tattooed on his chest. It was very ferocious. Seeing Li Changsheng and Wen Pengfeng come in, the elegant man immediately laughed and said, "Boss Wen, I originally gave you a month's time. I didn't expect you to come in advance. I wonder if you have prepared the money?" As he spoke, his eyes swept over Li Changsheng and the others behind Wen Pengfeng without leaving a trace. Obviously, he knew all of Wen Pengfeng's men. There was nothing strange about it. Therefore, he took a few more glances at Li Changsheng. However, Li Changsheng stood there like a junior to Wen Pengfeng. He quickly retracted his gaze. Chapter 393. "Of course I brought the money, but I want to see my son first," Wen Pengfeng said coldly, but his eyes were filled with worry. No one could be at ease when their son's life was in danger. "Well, since Mr. Wen said so, I have to give you some face." The elegant middle-aged man turned the wine glass in his hand. The subordinate behind him waved his hand, and a tied-up child was brought forward. The child's mouth was stuffed with a piece of cloth, and he was crying. His eyes were filled with tears. The moment he saw the child, Wen Pengfeng's eyes turned red. He got up and wanted to walk over. However, the fierce-looking man stepped forward and stopped him. Mr. One, I know you and your son are very close, but you should take out the money first, and then you can reunite with your son. The elegant middle-aged man smiled. From the beginning to the end, he looked like he had everything under control. Feng Nan, even if you and I have a grudge, the child is innocent. It's too despicable for you to use the child to threaten me. Seeing the child safe and sound, when Ping Feng calmed down a little and sat back in his seat. The scholarly man named Feng Nan, on the other hand, only smiled. Mr. Wen, let's not talk about despicable first. If you can't take out the money today, look at how cute your son is. If he's missing any parts, I'm sure you'll be heartbroken, right? When Peng Feng's face suddenly changed, he couldn't help but look at Li Changsheng. Mr. Li, hearing Wen Pengfeng's words, Li Changsheng didn't answer in a hurry. Instead, he picked up a teacup on the table and poured himself a cup of tea. He took a sip and said leisurely, "Don't worry about it. You're a big shot in the border area, but you're doing something as despicable as kidnapping a child. It's really beneath your dignity. How about this? Give me some face and let the child go. I'll pay 100,000 yuan for him." The elegant middle-aged man, Feng Nan, didn't know Li Changsheng's identity, but he still sneered and said, "Why should I give you face? Because I'm so close that your subordinate won't have a chance to pull the trigger. I can take your life." Li Changsheng said with a faint smile. "So you're a martial arts expert?" Feng Nan smiled and looked at Wen Pengfeng. "Boss Wen, I knew you wouldn't give in so easily. You've made a mistake by using a martial arts expert to deal with me." As he spoke, he pointed at the fierce-looking brawny man behind him. "My subordinate is a grandmaster martial artist. He once killed a tiger with a single punch." After saying that, he looked at Li Changsheng playfully. "Young man, do you still think you can easily take my life now?" As soon as he finished speaking, the fierce-looking man took a step forward and looked at Li Changsheng with disdain. "So, you think your subordinate is very powerful?" Li Changsheng finished the tea in his cup in one gulp, then smiled and said, "How about I perform a magic trick for you?" Feng Nan couldn't help but frown. He did not know what the young man in front of him was up to. He knew that his subordinate was powerful, but he was not scared out of his wits. Li Changsheng picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea into the teacup. Then, he raised the cup. Then, he suddenly splashed the tea on the brawny man. "You're courting death." The brawny man was furious. He didn't expect Li Changsheng to splash tea on him. This was simply provoking him. He took a step forward and was about to ignore the tea splashed on him and take down Li Changsheng. However, the tea didn't disperse in the air. Instead, it condensed into a round ball and suddenly hit him. Then, the 200-pound body flew out as if it was hit by a high-speed train and crashed into the wall behind it. Boom, boom, boom. He landed heavily on the ground, and the whole room shook. The lid of the teapot on the table was sent flying and fell to the ground with a pada. Then, the whole room fell into a short silence. Feng Nan's subordinates were all dumbfounded. They had seen all kinds of martial arts masters in the Jianghu, but to send someone flying with tea was simply unheard of. Feng Nan's eyes showed deep fear. He knew the burly man's strength the best. Even if all of his subordinates worked together without using firearms, they would not be a match for him. But now, Li Changsheng sent him flying so easily. How strong was Li Changsheng? It was simply unimaginable. As for Wen Pengfeng, although he had seen Li Changsheng's strength, he still couldn't help but feel excited at this moment. "How about it? Do you want to consider it now and give me face?" Li Changsheng poured another cup of tea into his own cup. Feng Nan was so scared that he stepped back, afraid that Li Changsheng would also splash a cup of tea on him and send him flying. After a while, Feng Nan took a deep breath and said, "Mr. Li, although your art of enlightenment is very powerful, I still want to advise you not to meddle in other people's business. I didn't ask for this 1 billion for myself, but for the old immortal. The old immortal's art is very powerful. Even you are no match for him." "Old immortal?" Hearing Feng Nan's words, Li Changsheng's face showed some curiosity. "I don't know what's so great about that person that gives you so much confidence." The old immortal's surname is Yu Qi, and his first name is Lai. He is the Grand Supreme Elder of the Mount Hua sect. Feng Nan said proudly. "The Grand Supreme Elder of the Mount Hua sect?" Li Changxing's eyebrows twitched slightly. Last time, when he destroyed the Mount Hua sect, he planned to kill the Grand Supreme Elder as well. Unfortunately, the Grand Supreme Elder wasn't in the Mount Hua sect, which made him feel quite regretful. He didn't expect to hear the Grand Supreme Elder's name in the outside world. I wonder what the Grand Supreme Elder of the Mount Hua sect is doing in the outside world. Hearing Li Changxing's words, Feng Nan's face suddenly showed some pride. The reason why Elder Yuqi has come to this place outside the borders is entirely for my son. That son of mine is a natural genius in cultivation and has already been taken as a disciple by old immortal Yuqi. So if you touch a single hair on my head, old immortal Yuqi will not let you off. Oh, then I wonder where the old immortal is now. Li Changxing couldn't help but feel excited. He had to get rid of the root of the problem. As long as the Grand Supreme Elder of the Mount Hua sect was alive, he wouldn't feel at ease. It would be best if he could get rid of the Grand Supreme Elder today. The old immortal has already taken my son to Huaxia. His sect has suffered a catastrophe, and he wants to go back and take revenge. After saying that, he looked at Li Changxing with a cold smile. Now you know why I'm so confident, don't you? I hope you won't interfere in the matter between me and Wenpeng Feng. Hearing Feng Nan's words, Wenpeng Feng's face suddenly became anxious. Hearing Feng Nan say that the old immortal was so powerful, he was really afraid that Li Changxing would be afraid of him. However, his worries were obviously unfounded. Li Changxing smiled and said, Then do you know who destroyed the Mount Hua sect? Do you know the name of the enemy that the old immortal is looking for and how old he is? Before the old immortal left, he said that the person who destroyed the Mount Hua sect was a young man named Li Changxing. Feng Nan's words came to an abrupt end. He remembered that when Peng Feng called the person in front of him Mr. Li, his surname is Li and he's only in his 20s. Are you the devil who destroyed the Mount Hua sect? Feng Nan's face turned pale with fright. Chapter 394. Seems like you're not stupid after all. Li Changxing smiled faintly. Since you know who I am, release him now. Yes. Feng Nan lowered his head. He quickly ordered his subordinate to release Wenpeng Feng's son. At that moment, the fleshy man who was sent flying by Li Changxing got up from the ground and grabbed a submachine gun from his companion beside him. He aimed at Li Changxing and pulled the trigger. Bang, 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 bang. The muzzle of the gun spat fire. Countless bullets flew towards Li Changxing. Ha! Go to hell. The man's face was ferocious, and his eyes were deranged as he laughed maniacally. However, in the next moment, when the bullets were half a meter away from Li Changxing's body, they were all stopped in the air as if they had encountered an invisible barrier. Then, as Li Changxing flicked his finger gently, the countless bullets instantly changed direction and flew towards the fleshy man. In just an instant, several bloody holes appeared on the fleshy man's body, and he fell straight to the ground. Silence. There was complete silence. Feng Nan's subordinates, who were originally trembling in fear. Feng Nan himself was filled with despair. This was simply the work of a god. Even bullets could be manipulated. This was simply terrifying. Release him. Li Changxing snorted coldly. Only then did Feng Nan react and immediately untied the ropes on Wenpeng Feng's son. Dad! The little boy ran over crying and threw himself into Wenpeng Feng's arms. Even if Wenpeng Feng was one of the many bosses at the border, he could not help but tear up at this moment. On the other side, Feng Nan was so frightened that he knelt in front of Li Changxing with a thud. Please spare my life, Mr. Li. At this moment, Li Changxing was no different from a god in his eyes. You said that your son is under the tutelage of the Huashan sect Supreme Elder, Yuqi Lai. When Yuqi Lai brought your son back to Huaxia, other than to seek revenge, did he say anything else? Hearing Li Changxing's question, Feng Nan did not dare to hide anything and quickly answered. Yes, yes. He also said that he was looking for a treasure. When did he leave? Li Changxing furrowed his brows. Once Yuqi Lai returned to Huaxia and could not find him, what if he attacked his family? He suddenly felt a sense of urgency. He left 10 days ago. Li Changxing nodded at Feng Nan's words. He said coldly, Originally, I should have killed you with one palm strike, but seeing that you were so cooperative, I will spare your dog life. From today onwards, immediately dismiss your subordinates and become a well-behaved rich man. Do you hear me? Yes, thank you, Mr. Li. Feng Nen knelt on the ground and continuously kowtowed to Li Changsheng. It was as if he had just escaped with his life. Well, Mr. Wen, I've done what I promised you. I'm going back to China now. Li Changsheng was anxious to return home, because the longer he delayed, the more danger Yu Wei and the others would be in. Okay, Mr. Li, then I will send a car to send you back. After when Peng Feng finished speaking, he saw Li Changsheng shake his head. He took out a flying sword and stepped on it, instantly disappearing into the sky. At that moment, everyone present widened their eyes. Sword immortal flight. Mr. Li is really a god. Li Changsheng flew all the way back to Qingzhou as fast as lightning. Even his strong body, which had broken through to the peak of the innate stage, could not withstand it. After all, he was using the sword immortal flight. Traveling through the sky with the help of the flying sword was not really getting rid of gravity. The consumption of spiritual ether was terrifying. After returning to Qingzhou, he lay on a big tree and rested for 20 minutes before he felt that his body had regained its strength. First, he called all the people he knew. After knowing that they had not encountered anything unusual, he breathed a sigh of relief. He had destroyed the entire Huashan sect. The Huashan sect's supreme elder would definitely not show mercy to his family and friends. When he called Yu Wei said that she was shopping with 2 classmates. They were Bai Chong, who had taken the driving test with her last time, and her boyfriend, Sung Pan. She asked Li Changsheng if he wanted to go over. Li Changsheng nodded. When he arrived at the square, Yu Wei and the others were sitting at a food stall. Sung Pan had seen Li Changsheng's extraordinary identity at the driving school last time. This time, he was obviously a little reserved. After Li Changsheng sat down, he ordered a cup of Coke. They were probably hungry. Yu Wei and Bai Chong were not that hungry, but Sung Pan was wolfing down his food. After he was finally full, he wiped his mouth and turned on his phone to browse the news. Suddenly, a piece of news attracted Sung Pan's attention. He showed it to his girlfriend, Bai Chong. Look, why does this person look so much like Li Changsheng? Bai Chong took a look and was surprised. The title of the news was very eye-catching. Godstone is unearthed at the border. Many big bosses are heading there. Mysterious person is not afraid of bullets. The image was still relatively clear. When Peng Feng and the others were sitting on a high platform, including many rich people below the platform, only the back of a young man was captured. Even Yu Wei was a little curious. She came over to take a look and said, "He does look like Changsheng, but this title is too exaggerated. A person blocked a bullet with his body. Does he think he is a god?" At the side, Bai Chong added, "These editors nowadays dare to write anything just to attract attention." Li Changsheng glanced at it and was slightly shocked. He did not expect that there would be reporters involved in the incident at the border that day. Fortunately, only his back was captured. There are a lot of follow-up hot news, and there is video evidence. The next article will reveal it for everyone. This was the paragraph at the end of the article. Sung Pan was obviously very interested in this news. He went back and refreshed the page again, hoping to see the second article at the end of the article. However, he suddenly found that even the first article had disappeared without a trace. What's going on? I could still see it just now. He found the history and clicked on it again. However, the content of the article was deleted because it violated regulations. This reporter must be talking nonsense, so he is prohibited from publishing these supernatural content. Now, there is real-time monitoring on the internet. Bai Chong said. Sung Pan and Yu Wei both agreed. Li Changsheng was thinking, this kind of supernatural incident may happen many times every year. In order not to cause social unrest, the country must control it. Just like this news, it was immediately deleted as soon as it was published. It could be seen that the incident at the border had been spread to the table of those important people, and they had made a response. However, didn't this mean that he had fallen into the eyes of the security organization? Chapter 395. Li Changsheng breathed a sigh of relief after knowing that his friend were fine. However, the supreme elder of Mount Hua had been hiding in the dark and was a hidden danger. He had to find a way to find him. After shopping with Yu Wei and the others for the entire afternoon, he personally sent Yu Wei home. When Li Changsheng returned to his villa, he saw a figure in white standing at the door and looking at him quietly. Who else could it be but Ding Qingxue? Ding Qingxue had a cold face. To put it bluntly, as long as she stood there, even if the sun was shining brightly, she would give off a cool feeling. What are you doing here? Have you been waiting for a long time? Li Guang Changsheng asked with a smile. Just as he took out the key to open the door of the villa, Ding Qingxue grabbed his arm and said coldly, "Don't go in. Come with me." Come with you? Why? Li Changsheng was stunned. In a few days, it will be your inauguration ceremony as the leader of the Sword Alliance. You represent Mount Shu, so you need to come with me to understand the process of the ceremony. Li Changsheng suddenly remembered that there was indeed such a thing. Ding Qingxue couldn't help but frown. Don't tell me you forgot about this. One had to know that the Sword Dao ceremony was a sacred event in the eyes of many Sword Dao sections. To be able to become the leader of the Sword Dao Alliance was simply an honor. However, Li Changsheng didn't take it seriously and forgot about it. In that case, if she hadn't come, it would have been a long time before he remembered. Ding Qingxue was speechless. Li Changsheng also felt a little apologetic. It seemed that the Sword Dao ceremony was very important to others, so it was indeed a little inappropriate for him to be so casual. Let's go back to Mount Shu with me. My brother and the others have been waiting for a long time. Okay. Li Changsheng nodded. Ding Qingxue pulled him out of the villa, and they got into a taxi and headed straight to the suburbs of Qingzhou. Aren't you going to Mount Shu? Why are you going to the suburbs? Li Changsheng was puzzled. Ding Qingxue was still angry at Li Changsheng for not paying attention to the sword union ceremony, so she kept a cold face and did not answer him. An hour later, the car stopped. After getting out of the car, he saw a helicopter quietly parked in the distance. Are you saying that you want me to take a helicopter to Shushan? That's really generous. Even Li Changsheng was slightly surprised. My Shu Mountain sect has been passed down for thousands of years and has many businesses in the secular world. It's just a helicopter. If it weren't for the fact that the sect doesn't have an airport, it wouldn't be a big deal to get you a private jet. Ding Qingxue said proudly. Li Changsheng thought about it. It was just as she said. A sect that had been passed down for thousands of years would have accumulated an unimaginable amount of wealth. It was no wonder that Sima Chongkong was so grateful when he asked him to become a rich man the last time. Even if he didn't become the sect master of Shushan, he wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for several lifetimes with the wealth of the secular world. Let's go. My big brother and the others are still waiting at the sect. Ding Qingxue had a lot of resentment towards Li Changsheng. She waited in front of Li Changsheng's villa early in the morning and waited until the afternoon. Li Changsheng was the benefactor of Shushan. If it were anyone else, she would have already left with her temper. What made her angrier was that she heard that Li Changsheng came back so late because he went shopping with another girl. When she thought about how she had foolishly waited there for an entire day like a block of wood, while Li Changsheng was flirting with his little girlfriend, she felt extremely displeased. The helicopter started to take off. To be honest, it wasn't comfortable to sit inside. The noise in the sky was also quite loud. However, it felt good to sit in the sky and look down at the ground. During the flight, Li Changsheng closed his eyes to rest while Ding Qingxue had a cold face. After 8 o'clock in the evening, they finally arrived at the area of the Shushan sect. As soon as the helicopter landed, countless Shushan disciples came up to greet them. Some people even set off firecrackers and fireworks, as if it was the new year. Li Changsheng was speechless. Li Changsheng opened the door and walked down. Ding Qingyang and a group of Shushan's higher-ups immediately came up to greet him. Ding Qingxue followed Li Changsheng and walked down. For the first time, she tidied up Li Changsheng's messy clothes. Not only did Li Changsheng fail to react, but her brother, Ding Qingyang, was also stunned. Greetings, Mr. Li. Yufeng came up and bowed respectfully. As an elder of the Shushan sect, he still maintained his loyalty to Ding Qingyang and his sister when Sima Changkong ruled Shushan. Now that Ding Qingyang was the sect master of Shushan, Yufeng's status in Shushan could be said to be second only to one person. And because he was an elder, sometimes even Ding Qingyang and his sister were in awe of him. Now in Shushan, he was half a king. Every Shushan disciple was in awe of him. But even if he could put on airs in front of Ding Qingyang, he was extremely respectful in front of Li Changsheng. Not to mention that Li Changsheng had given Shushan a new lease on life. Li Changsheng's fierce strength made him one of the people who could never be provoked in his heart. Ding Qingyang, who was next to him, was even more respectful. Without Li Changsheng, the two of them might still be wandering around the world. He was very grateful, so even if he had to wait here from morning until night, he was willing to do so. Even the many Shushan disciples around had been waiting impatiently, but he was not dissatisfied at all. Li Changsheng smiled at Yufeng. The elder of Shushan was not that friendly to him at first, but now that everything was in the past, he wouldn't hold it against him. Ding Qingyang was dressed in an ancient robe. Like his sister, he was also dressed in white, which made him look ethereal and otherworldly. If he were to be the protagonist of a period drama, he would definitely gain many female fans. Li Changsheng reached out to pat him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Brother Ding, you're getting more and more handsome." That made Ding Qingyang feel a little embarrassed. The senior disciples of the Shushan sect behind him were a little dumbfounded. After Ding Qingyang succeeded as the sect leader of Shushan, he was known for being strict and old-fashioned. They didn't expect him to have such a side to him. At the same time, they were even more curious about the man who had made them wait for an entire day and was known as the benefactor of Shushan. To the disciples of Shushan, the change in Shushan was actually nothing more than a change in the sect leader. After Ding Qingyang and his sister regained control of Shushan, they did not deal with Sima Changkong's direct descendants. Hence, many people did not feel much about the transition. Their impression of Li Changsheng was only limited to the rumors that he had won the sword down meet for Ding Qingyang. At this moment, it was dark and they could not see Li Changsheng's face clearly, but they felt that there was a huge difference between him and the peerless expert that they had imagined. Chapter 396. She had been standing next to Li Changsheng the whole time. Her cheeks did not seem to be as cold as before. Such a change made Li Changsheng feel a little flattered. He thought to himself, women are really fickle. Li Changsheng was welcomed in the main hall by a group of people. The hall was brightly lit, and there was a row of magnificent mahogany chairs. Li Changsheng was naturally given the seat of honor. In the hall, Li Changsheng also found a lot of modern equipment. There were air conditioners and televisions, which surprised Li Changsheng a little. He had thought that an ancient sect like Mount Shu would definitely maintain an extremely backward style. He really did not expect that. He seemed to have sensed Li Changsheng's doubts. Ding Qingyang explained, "For cultivators, wealth comes first. If the Mount Shu sword sect wants to develop, it naturally needs to get money from the secular world. Since it wants to get money from the secular world, it is inevitable that it has to contact the secular world. Naturally, it will be slowly assimilated. There are indeed cultivators who hide in the mountains and forests all day without contact with others. But after all, they are few. Most of those people are eccentrics who are obsessed with cultivation to the point of being paranoid." While Ding Qingyang and Li Changsheng were talking, Ding Qingxue took the initiative to serve tea to them. In addition to her cold face, she looked like a virtuous little wife, which surprised all the senior members of Mount Shu. In the front row of the disciples, there was a young man of 14 or 15 years old. He was quite handsome and fair, looking like a girl. His name was Guo Wei, a disciple that Ding Qingyang had just taken in from the secular world. At that time, Ding Qingyang had just taken charge of Mount Shu. On his way back to Mount Shu, he passed by a village and saw Guo Wei, who was helping his parents with farm work. He found that Guo Wei's bones were amazing and very suitable for cultivation. So he took the initiative to take Guo Wei as his disciple and gave his parents a sum of money so that they did not need to work hard anymore. As Ding Qingyang's only disciple, Guo Wei was treated as the future leader of the Mount Shu sect. Everyone was polite to him, and even many martial uncles took the initiative to curry favor with him. Guo Wei had indeed displayed enough talent. In less than 3 months after joining Shushan, he had already reached the 3rd level of qi refinement. Ding Xingyang had also made it clear that as long as he cultivated well, he might be able to pass the position of sect leader of Mount Shu to him in the future. At this moment, Guo Wei was looking at Ding Qingxue with a gaze that carried a hint of heat. Ding Qingxue's beauty and generosity inevitably gave him a lot of longing. However, when he saw Li Changsheng sitting beside Ding Qingxue with a smile on his face, his eyes couldn't help but turn cold. Ding Qingyang waved at Guo Wei, who then walked up to him obediently. "Mr. Li, this is my new disciple. What do you think? It's only been 3 months, and he's already in the 3rd layer of aura refining." Ding Xingyang knew Li Changsheng's strength and intended to let Li Changsheng give some pointers to his disciple. Li Changsheng nodded. "That's right." Then, he didn't say anything else. Ding Xingyang was slightly disappointed. He really hoped that Guo Wei could get some pointers from Li Changsheng. After Li Changsheng walked into the hall, he felt a gaze full of hostility. Although it was hidden, it couldn't escape his perception. The gaze came from Guo Wei. At first, Li Changsheng didn't figure out the reason. He thought to himself, "This is the first time I've met this young man. Why does he hate me so much?" However, every time Ding Qingxue spoke to him, the hatred in Guo Wei's eyes would reach its peak. He immediately understood. Although Li Changsheng wouldn't argue with an immature young man, he wasn't generous enough to repay evil with good by giving pointers to someone who was extremely hostile to him. After sitting in the hall for a while, the banquet was ready. Although everyone present was a cultivator, none of them had reached the point where they could abstain from eating. Cultivators were just mortals who had many extraordinary powers. It was people who imagined them to be too high and mighty. If one really came into contact with them, they would know that they were far from being as otherworldly as imagined. When they sat down, Guo Wei could only sit at the table near the door because he was a junior. Looking at Ding Qingxue pouring wine for Li Changsheng from afar, he couldn't help but clench his fists. He was very unhappy. After the banquet, Li Changsheng was naturally arranged to be in the most comfortable room in Shushan. Ding Qingxue also walked over. Looking at Li Changsheng's puzzled gaze, she couldn't help but blush slightly. "My attitude on the road today was a little bad. I came to apologize to you." Li Changsheng was really surprised. This didn't seem to be the style of this ice goddess. He chuckled and said, "That's it? I thought you were going to warm my bed." Suddenly, Ding Qingxue's eyes showed a chill. Seeing that Ding Qingxue was about to flip out, Li Changsheng hurriedly laughed and said, "Just kidding. Oomph." Ding Qingxue turned and left. But after walking out of the door, 2 red clouds flew up from her cheeks for the first time. In a small forest not far away, Guo Wei was looking at Li Changsheng's room from afar with a few youths of the same age. They were all 3rd-generation disciples of Shushan, led by Guo Wei. Among them, a thin and tall youth with a blade of grass in his mouth said, "Junior brother Ge, Martial Aunt Ding Qingxue still went to Li Changsheng's room so late at night. Don't tell me she likes that guy." Hearing that, Guo Wei suddenly flew into a rage. "Bullshit. Martial Aunt Qingxue is like a goddess. How could she like that stinky dog shit?" The youth was frightened by Guo Wei's ferocious appearance and said embarrassedly, "I was just saying, why are you so agitated? Oomph. If you dare to say bad things about my martial aunt again, I'll beat you up. Do you believe me?" Guo Wei swung his fist proudly. The youth immediately shut his mouth. Although Guo Wei had only been in the sect for 3 months, he was already at the 3rd firmament of qi refinement. Moreover, the elders had already told him to give in to Guo Wei. After all, he was the sect leader's disciple. This also made Guo Wei, who was originally a timid village boy when he first came to the Shushan Sword sect, become the leader of the 3rd-generation disciples in no time. He was arrogant and domineering, and no one dared to provoke him. Seeing that Guo Wei was in a bad mood, a youth next to him asked carefully, "Junior brother Guo, Are we really going to throw snakes into his room? The youth looked at Li Changxing's room, and his voice was a little nervous. Of course. Didn't you see that guy's arrogant look? How can we not teach him a lesson? But he's an honored guest of Shushan, the youth muttered. And I don't see how he's arrogant. Of course, the latter half of the sentence was only in his mind. He didn't dare to say it out loud. Otherwise, with Guo Wei's temper, he would definitely kick him. So what if he's an honored guest? I'm the future sect leader of Shushan. If you don't listen to me, when I become the sect leader of Shushan, all of you will be kicked out of Shushan. Hearing Guo Wei's words, the other youths immediately expressed their opinions. We'll listen to Junior Brother Guo. Yes, Junior Brother Guo. When you become the sect leader, you must confer me the title of elder. Youths were always more naive. Only then did Guo Wei's face become smug. He snatched the bamboo basket from the hands of a fatty next to him and opened it. There were more than 20 snakes densely packed inside. Then, he bent over and sneaked into Li Changxing's room. Chapter 397. After Ding Qingxue left, Li Changxing casually took a book from the bookshelf, flipped through a few pages, then turned off the light and went to sleep. He rushed back to Qingzhou from the border and strolled around the streets with Yu Wei for half a day. Then, he took a helicopter to Shushan. Li Changxing's journey took him almost half of Huaxia. Even though he was tough, he still felt a little tired. It was a quiet night. When Li Changxing woke up the next morning, he was greeted by the chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers. In the distant forest, a few youths had been waiting for an entire night. They waited until dawn before falling asleep in a daze. Fortunately, they were all martial artists. If they were ordinary children, they would have gotten sick from the cold. In the morning, the tall and thin guy pushed Guo Wei's shoulder. Guo Wei, who was sleeping soundly, opened his eyes with dissatisfaction. He heard the tall and thin guy say, "Brother Guo, look, that person came out. It seems like nothing happened to him." Guo Wei rubbed his eyes. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. Yesterday, he had stuffed more than 20 poisonous snakes into the room through the crack in the window. How could there be no movement from him? Although he was full of doubts, he didn't dare to ask Li Changxing what was going on. He just muttered a few words and returned to his room. Li Changxing didn't open the door for long. Ding Qingxue brought him breakfast with a lunchbox made of bamboo. Li Changxing smiled and thanked him. He took the bowl and said as he ate his breakfast, "I heard that there are a lot of snakes, insects, rats, and ants in this mountain. Why don't we make snake soup for lunch?" Although Ding Qingxue grew up in Shushan, she was naturally afraid of snakes. When she heard Li Changxing's words, she smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect you to like to eat this kind of thing. I'll ask the chef in charge of cooking to catch a few for you. There is no lack of snakes here, but I feel sick when I see them." "It's okay. You don't have to catch them. I have some here." With that, Li Changxing took out a wooden bucket from the corner. When the lid was lifted, more than 20 snakes were wriggling around in a ball. Ding Qingxue couldn't help but frown. Looking at the snake in the wooden barrel, he seemed to think of something. He said apologetically, "It's my Shushan sect's fault for not being strict enough and causing you trouble." Ding Qingxue's gaze turned cold. Guo Wei was her brother's disciple. Because he was more talented, she had always doted on him. He just didn't expect the other party to be so bold. "It's okay. It's just a child. If you really feel sorry, why don't you let me sleep in your room? I heard that your room is the quietest place in Shushan sect." Hearing this, Ding Qingxue was enraged. Her eyes were filled with coldness. It was obvious that she wanted to eat Li Changxing alive. Li Changxing immediately laughed and said, "What's wrong? I'm an honored guest of Shushan. Shouldn't you give me the best room in your sect? What I meant was to give up the house for me to live in, and then you can live somewhere else." "What? You're not thinking too much, are you?" Ding Qingxue immediately gritted her teeth and glared at Li Changxing. After breakfast, Ding Qingxue asked a disciple of Shushan to deal with the snakes in the wooden barrel, and then went to the hall with Li Changxing. In the hall, Ding Qingyang and others had been waiting for a long time. When they saw Li Changxing and Ding Qingxue coming in together, their eyes lit up. The others around them also looked thoughtful. This made Ding Qingxue blush involuntarily. The inauguration ceremony of the leader will be held in 3 days. At that time, all the major cultivation sects will be invited to watch the ceremony. I wonder if Mr. Li has any friends to invite? Ding Qingyang asked. I don't have any friends in the cultivation world. I just want to invite the friends of Shushan sect. Okay. Hearing Li Changxing's words, Ding Qingyang nodded. There should be several martial arts families in charge of the ceremony today. You don't have to see them in person. I'll discuss it with them. Then what else do you need me to do? Li Changxing asked. You just have to wait for the inauguration of the leader of the Sword Alliance 3 days later. You don't have to worry about other things. Okay. Li Changxing nodded. He hated trouble the most, and since he didn't have to deal with it himself, it was best. There may be various sects arriving in advance in the next few days. When the time comes, they will definitely visit you, Mr. Li. I'm afraid they will disturb your peace. Ding Qingyang hesitated for a moment and said, in the past few days, he could tell that Li Changsheng was a person who didn't like trouble, and it seemed that he wasn't very interested in the position of the leader of the Sword Alliance. Back then, he attended the Sword Dao meet purely because he wanted to help Ding Qingyang and his sister. At the thought of this, Ding Qingyang felt a little grateful. Ding Qingxue, who was beside him, had the same thoughts as her brother, but apart from gratitude, there was another emotion growing in her heart. Master, I'm here to pay my respects to you. Guo Wei respectfully walked in and bowed to Ding Qingyang. Then he bowed to Ding Qingxue and the other elders in the sect. Ding Qingyang could not help but nod his head in satisfaction when he saw Guo Wei's polite behavior. Although Guo Wei was arrogant and domineering among the third-generation disciples, he was very good at acting. He would always act like an obedient child in front of Ding Qingyang, which made Ding Qingyang like him more and more. Ding Qingxue sighed. In fact, she was far more clear-headed than her brother. Li Changsheng couldn't help but look at the young man a few more times. He thought to himself, this guy's acting skills are quite good. Yesterday, he threw a snake into my room, and today, he's able to act as if nothing happened. When he grows up, he might become a formidable character. It's just that right now, he's still too young. Bored, Li Changsheng was about to leave the hall. At this moment, Guo Wei suddenly said, Master, I've already learned the swimming dragon sword technique that you taught me a few days ago. Shall I perform it for you now? Hearing that, Ding Qingyang was pleasantly surprised and said, Okay, but the swimming dragon sword technique can't be displayed by one person. With that, Guo Wei's eyes fell on Li Changxing. Mr. Li, can you practice a few moves with me? Don't worry, I won't hurt you. Hearing Guo Wei's words, Ding Qingxue was about to refuse on behalf of Li Changsheng, but Ding Qingyang said, Mr. Li, since you have nothing to do, why don't you practice a few moves with my disciple? His original intention was to let Guo Wei show in front of Li Changsheng and see if he could get Li Changsheng's appreciation and teach him a few moves. Ding Qingyang admired Li Changsheng's strength very much, and he didn't know what his disciple was thinking. Okay, Li Changsheng nodded. An imperceptible sneer flashed across Guo Wei's eyes. Chapter 398. Then I'm going to start. Guo Wei's eyes were filled with excitement. He slowly unsheathed a long sword. That sword was a good one, and Guo Wei liked it very much. Ding Qingyang had asked a sword-forging master from Mount Shu to forge it for his disciple. The sword radiance was dazzling. The moment the sword was unsheathed, the sound of the sword was heard. The surrounding Shu mountain elders all had looks of admiration on their faces. Among the third-generation disciples of Mount Shu, Guo Wei's aptitude was indeed second to none. Mount Shu was a swordsman's sect. Judging from the way Guo Wei held the sword, it could be seen that he was about to reach a higher level in swordsmanship. Take my sword. Guo Wei took a step forward and stabbed at Li Changxing's throat like a flying dragon. Even Ding Qingyang's expression changed when he saw that. He had just agreed to let Li Changsheng practice swordsmanship with Guo Wei. He did not expect Guo Wei to be so ruthless. This is not practicing swordsmanship. This is clearly killing. He should know that Li Changsheng is stronger than him. That's why he went all out. He has no ill intentions. Ding Qingyang seemed to be explaining to the people around him, but it also seemed like he was explaining to himself. When the sword radiance was close to Li Changxing's throat, Li Changxing moved his feet lightly and dodged the attack. Guo Wei did not expect that the sword he was so proud of would be dodged so easily. He subconsciously looked at Ding Qingxue, who was standing next to him. When he saw the flash of appreciation in Ding Qingxue's eyes, anger rose in his heart for no reason. Swish, swish, swish. He stabbed 3 times in a row, all of which were aimed at Li Changxing's vital parts. Li Changxing did not expect that the young man would be so ruthless. He took 3 steps back and dodged the attack. At that moment, Guo Wei suddenly stepped on the ground and leaped into the air. He spun and stabbed at Li Changxing's chest. The sword caused a sonic boom in the air. It was very unusual for someone at his age to use such a sword move. If the other party was kind, Li Changxing might not be able to resist giving a few pointers to such a good seedling. However, the other party had used his aptitude in the wrong place and wanted to hurt Li Changxing. Li Changxing's eyes turned cold. When the opponent's sword was about to stab him, he suddenly stretched out his hand and caught the opponent's sword. Guo Wei, who had a sneer on his face, suddenly felt his attack come to an abrupt stop. Then, Li Changxing gently pinched the sword with his fingers, and the sword, which could cut through iron as if it were mud, was directly broken from the middle. Crack! At the same time, a huge force was transmitted to Guo Wei's body through the sword. Guo Wei was sent flying backwards, crashing into the wall of the hall. When he landed on the ground, there was blood in his mouth. And this was the result of Li Changxing being merciful. Otherwise, his meridians would have been severed. Even so, Guo Wei's face was still deathly pale, and deep fear was revealed in his eyes. When he first heard of Li Changxing's deeds, he didn't believe that this guy, who didn't look much older than him, was really so powerful. But now, he realized the gap between himself and Li Changxing. One day, I will defeat you, Guo Wei said hatefully. He stood up and staggered out of the hall. Ding Qingyang didn't expect this result. Just as he was about to say something, Elder Yu Feng stood up. Sect Master, I'll go take a look. Okay. Ding Qingyang nodded. Yu Feng chased out of the hall. At this moment, Ding Qingxue sighed faintly. She felt that it was time to have a good talk with her brother. Guo Wei, who had originally wanted to teach Li Changxing an unforgettable lesson, walked out of the hall with a sore body. He had only taken a few steps when he heard footsteps behind him. Seeing that it was Elder Yu Feng, he immediately bowed and said, Elder, like Ding Qingyang. Yu Feng doted on Guo Wei, the most outstanding 3rd-generation disciple of Shushan. He patted him on the shoulder and said, How is it? Now you know that there's always someone better out there, right? You've broken through to the 3rd level of Qi refinement realm, and no one in the 3rd generation is your match. However, as the disciple of the sect leader, your vision should not be limited to the Shushan sect. So, you must always remain humble and not be arrogant and complacent. Yes, Guo Wei nodded. He then said indignantly, Even if Li Changxing is a little more powerful than me, it's not a big deal. How can he be more powerful than my master? How can he be more powerful than you, Elder Yu? Hearing Guo Wei's childish words, Yu Feng smiled and sighed. He thought about how he had the same thoughts as Guo Wei when he first saw Li Changxing. The ordinary-looking young man did not look like an expert at all. However, at the last Sword Dao meet, he mercilessly killed Lu Yuanlang, the junior sect leader of the Huashan sword sect. Sima Changkong and Yin Shuangying, the sect leader of the Qingchang sword sect, were so frightened that they immediately lowered their heads and admitted defeat. In the end, even the sect leader of Huashan, Lu Sun, still died in the hands of Li Changxing even after using all his trump cards. Soon after, there was even more shocking news. Li Changxing killed his way to the Huashan sect and exterminated the entire sect. That news made all the voices of dissatisfaction towards Li Changxing in the cultivation world quiet down. As a result, Yu Feng, who had always been rather conceited, actually felt a trace of fear from the bottom of his heart when he saw Li Changxing again. This seemingly ordinary young man was now the infamous god of slaughter in the world of cultivation. After hesitating for a while, Yufeng said to Guo Wei, Xiao Wei, don't provoke Li Changxing anymore. He's an existence that you can't afford to offend. Not to mention you, even if I, your master, and everyone in Mount Shu were joined forces, we still wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from him. Today, he only broke your sword and caused you some minor injuries. He was already being merciful. Even if he were to kill you, we have nothing to say. Because you were the one who revealed your killing intent first. Killing intent is something that can't be seen or touched, but a true expert can feel it. You're too young to understand the mystery of it. Moreover, no matter how much your master dotes on you, if you were to die in the hands of Li Changsheng, he wouldn't avenge you. Li Changsheng is Mount Shu's benefactor. Your master is where he is today, all because of Li Changsheng. Your master is a person who knows how to be grateful, and he should be grateful. Without Li Changsheng, your master would still be wandering around the world, and you would still be that poor child who couldn't even afford to study. Think about it carefully. After saying that, Yufeng patted Guo Wei on the shoulder, turned around, and walked back to his residence. He had already said what he needed to say. As for how much he could take in, that was up to his own luck. Guo Wei watched Yufeng disappear at the end of the road with complicated thoughts. He clenched and unclenched his fists, then clenched and unclenched them again. He repeated this 5 or 6 times before finally lowering his head slowly. Chapter 399. The succession ceremony of the Sword Dao Alliance Master was progressing in an orderly manner. Li Changsheng, the protagonist, had nothing to do every day. After Guo Wei's incident, Ding Qingyang came to Li Changsheng to apologize in the afternoon. He said that he had not taught his disciple well and that he would not only check his cultivation progress in the future, but also pay attention to his moral character. Li Changsheng nodded. He knew that his sister, Ding Qingxue, must have said something to him. Otherwise, with Ding Qingyang's slow reaction, he would have thought that Li Changsheng, who had dealt with innate realm cultivators like cutting vegetables, would bully his disciple. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day of the ceremony. On this day, the Mount Shu Sword Sect had an endless stream of guests since the morning. Although the succession of the Sword Dao Alliance Master was a matter for the sword cultivation sects, far more than just sword cultivation sects came to congratulate them. Many martial arts families and cultivation sects came one after another. Li Changsheng had always been elusive. Many people had heard of his name, but they had never seen what he looked like. Now, he was famous in the cultivation world. He had single-handedly flattened the Mount Hua sect, which in itself showed his terrifying strength. At noon, when the succession ceremony was about to officially begin, the entire Mount Shu Sword sect was already crowded with people from various sections. This made the Mount Shu disciples, who did not have much respect for Li Changsheng, dumbfounded. Oh my God, why are there so many people? This is too extravagant, isn't it? A second-generation disciple of Mount Shu said, in surprise. They're all here for Li Changsheng. I heard that Li Changsheng has now been listed as one of the top 10 existences in the cultivation world that should not be provoked. No way. He looks so ordinary. Is he really so powerful? Someone said in surprise. In the distance, Guo Wei, who was standing in the crowd, had a complicated look in his eyes. This Li Changsheng actually has so much face. Could it be that I was wrong? Guo Wei recalled what Yufeng had said to him. At first, he was still skeptical. Only now did he realize how insignificant he was compared to Li Changsheng. He was not even worth mentioning. At this time, there were only 20 minutes left until noon. As Li Changsheng stepped onto the high platform, the crowd immediately fell into silence. Today, Li Changsheng was wearing a white robe. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, and he really did look like a swordsman from ancient times. Master Yin Shuangying of the Qingchang Sword Sect has arrived. At this moment, the singing started. Yin Shuangying walked over with large strides, surrounded by a group of disciples, attracting the attention of the crowd. Yin Shuangying was a famous figure in the world of cultivators. As soon as he appeared, He immediately bowed to Li Changsheng. Congratulations to Mr. Li for succeeding as the chief of the Sword League. In the future, our Qingsheng sword sect will follow Mr. Li's lead. His attitude represented a form of acknowledgement. Wudong sect leader Song Zhen has arrived. Amei's headmaster has arrived. Mount Song's sect master. Voices sounded one after another. The sect leaders of the various major sword sects appeared one after another. Putuo Temple of the Western region has sent a congratulatory gift. The Villa Master of White Horse Villa is here to pay his respects to Alliance leader Li. Voices sounded one after another. The appearance of the sect leaders of various martial Dao sects and aristocratic families from all over the country caused the atmosphere to reach a climax. Sima Changkong, the rich man, has arrived. As the voices sounded, the crowd immediately fell silent. Sima Changkong was originally the sect leader of Mount Shu, but he lost to Li Changsheng at the Sword Dao meet and even lost his position as the sect leader of Mount Shu. At this moment, many people guessed that he might be there to seek revenge. Many disciples of the Mount Shu sect were struggling internally. If Sima Changkong were to make things difficult for them, what should they do? After all, Sima Changkong had been the sect leader of Mount Shu for a long time. Although he had usurped the position, he still had many supporters in the sect. Elder Yufeng said that even Sima Changkong lost to Li Changsheng, but I don't believe it. Guo Wei, who was in the crowd, clenched his fists tightly. Even Ding Qingxue and Ding Qingyang couldn't help but subconsciously grip the long swords in their hands, feeling a little nervous. Under everyone's gaze, Sima Changkong walked out of the crowd and then cupped his fists at Li Changsheng. Mr. Li, congratulations on succeeding the position of the leader of the Sword Alliance. I came uninvited. You won't chase me out, right? Of course not. Li Changsheng smiled slightly. Ding Chunyang and Ding Qingxue also heaved a sigh of relief. Please take a seat, Uncle Master. Ding Qingyang walked in front of Sima Changkong, and when he called him Uncle Master, Sima Changkong's body trembled before he laughed out loud and said, "It's worth it." The hatred between the two seemed to have dissipated completely with that smile. At this moment, there was a long bell ringing. It was already noon. The leader of the martial Dao family who was in charge of hosting the meeting said loudly, "Li Changsheng, please succeed as the leader of the Sword Alliance." Suddenly, a bugle horn sounded. The atmosphere instantly became solemn. Li Changsheng slowly walked forward and reached out to take the token that symbolized the leader of the Sword Alliance. He then raised the token high. Suddenly, the sect leaders and disciples of various Sword Dao sects knelt on the ground and shouted, "Greetings, Alliance leader." For a moment, their voices soared into the sky and lasted for a few minutes before stopping. Everyone stood up while Li Changsheng sat on the seat that symbolized the leader of the Sword Alliance. Next, he would appoint the elders of the Sword Alliance and the people in charge of various positions in the alliance. In fact, these had already been decided, and the roster had been prepared before this. Li Changsheng only needed to read the roster. If it was someone else who succeeded, the positions in the alliance would definitely be rearranged. However, Li Changsheng was alone and had no followers, so his previous positions were basically unchanged. There was only the addition of Ding Qingyang, the Shushan sect leader, as the chief deacon of the alliance. Just as Li Changsheng picked up the roster and was about to read the names, a thunderous voice suddenly came from the sky. "Li Changsheng, you annihilated the entire Huashan sect. Today is the day you die." A figure flew from the sky and quickly approached. It was an old man with white hair and a beard, and there was a red light flashing in his eyes. Next to him was a young man of 17 or 18 years old who was being held up by the collar. The moment the old man appeared, there was a commotion below. "This is the supreme elder of the Huashan sect, Yuqi Lai. I didn't expect him to appear at this time. Flying in the air is a divine ability that only those in the Vajra realm have. Rumor has it that First Lieutenant Yuqi Lai is a Vajra realm martial expert. It seems to be true. A Vajra realm martial expert is here to seek revenge. Can Li Changsheng stop him?" A Vajra realm martial expert's body is indestructible and can't be killed by cannonballs. Li Changsheng is in danger now. Ding Qingyang and Ding Qingxue had already stood up with a guarded look. As for the many sect leaders who congratulated Li Changsheng just now, they all kept a distance from Li Changsheng. In just a moment, Li Changsheng was abandoned by everyone and became alone. Chapter 400. Li Changsheng, you devil! How dare you kill the entire Huashan sect? I'll grind your bones to dust today. Yuchi Lai's hair fluttered as he stood in the air like a supreme god. His voice was so powerful that it caused the earth to tremble. It was horrifying. I was supposed to seek revenge on you when I returned from overseas. The reason why I waited until today is to beat you to hell when you're at your proudest after inheriting the position of Sword Alliance chief. Yuchi Lai released his palm, and the young man who came with him slowly descended from the sky. Mr. Li, the Huashan sect's Grand Elder, is very powerful. You should quickly hide in the main hall of the Shushan sect and activate the protective formation of the Shushan sect. There is a secret passage under the main hall of the Shushan sect to escape. Ding Qingyang said to Li Changsheng in a low voice. Then the brother and sister took a step forward almost at the same time and pulled out the long swords in their hands. Mr. Li, you helped us take back Mount Shu. Today, we'll repay you with our lives. The two of them stepped forward, determined to stall Yuchi Lai for Li Changsheng so that Li Changsheng could escape. Huashan sect was annihilated because you and your sister attracted this thief. Both of you are unforgivable, and now you're still being stubborn. You deserve to die. Yuchi Lai waved his sleeve in the air, and suddenly, an invisible force whizzed out. Ding Qingyang and his sister took a step back at the same time, and there was blood at the corner of their mouths. Li Changsheng's eyes were also filled with shock. He had not expected Yuchi Lai to be able to injure Ding Qingyang and his sister from dozens of meters away with a single blow. Only those who have reached the late stage of the Vajra realm can use such a technique. It seems that I've underestimated Yuchi Lai. Li Changsheng thought to himself. He said to the Ding Qingyang and his sister, "You two step back. Let me do it. Mr. Li, you should escape now. It'll be too late if you don't." Ding Qingyang's voice sounded anxious, but Li Changsheng did not seem to hear him. He just looked at Yuchi Lai in the sky with a cold look in his eyes. Sima Changkong, the position of sect master was taken away by two juniors. Do you feel resentment in your heart? Today, it's time for you to hold your head high. Now, I'll give you a chance. Capture these two siblings for me, and I'll help you take back the position of sect master. Let me kill this demon, Li Changsheng. Yuchi Lai looked down at Sima Changkong. However, Sima Changkong shook his head and said, "Back then, I snatched the position of Shushan's sect master. Now that I've become a rich man, there's nothing to be resentful about. Old man Yuchi, I won't help you deal with Ding Qingyang and his sister. Instead, I'll be on their side today." What? When Yuchi Lai heard Sima Changkong's words, his face was instantly filled with rage. Little brat Sima, you actually chose to go against me. You're courting death. As he spoke, he suddenly raised his hand and struck towards Sima Changkong's position. Suddenly, a transparent palm force shot down. Sima Changkong's face changed drastically. However, he was still much stronger than Ding Qingyang and his sister. He shifted his feet and dodged the attack by a hair's breadth. When the palm force hit the ground, there was a loud bang and a 2-meter pit appeared. Although Sima Changkong had dodged the opponent's attack, his face was filled with deep fear. If he had reacted half a beat slower, he might have lost his life by now. This was just a casual strike from Yuchi Lai. Not only Sima Changkong, but many of the sect masters at the scene were also horrified. Yuchi Lai's strength was too strong. They knew that even if they gave it their all, they wouldn't be able to withstand one strike from Yuchi Lai. They were thankful that they had kept a sufficient distance from Li Changsheng. Everyone present was shocked by Yuchi Lai's attack, and they fell into silence. At this moment, a figure suddenly rushed out and knelt on the ground with a thud. It was Ding Qingyang's disciple, Guowei. Guowei, what are you doing? When Ding Qingyang saw his disciple rush out, he was surprised at first. When he saw Guo Wei kneeling on the ground, he frowned and said angrily, "Get back here." Unexpectedly, Guo Wei turned a blind eye to his master's voice and kowtowed 3 times to Yuqi Lai. "Mr. Yuqi, I am Ding Qingyang's disciple, but I have been in the Mount Shu sword sect for less than 3 months. Please let me go. I don't want to be buried with the 3 sects of Mount Shu. As long as you spare my life, I am willing to be your slave." Originally, they thought that Guo Wei would come out to plead for mercy for the entire Mount Shu sword sect. They didn't expect that Guo Wei would rush to cut ties with the Mount Shu sword sect. Ding Qingyang's eyes were filled with disappointment. In the sky, Yuqi Lai laughed heartily and said, "Good, you're worth teaching. You and my disciple stand together for now. After I kill Li Changsheng and Ding Qingyang, I'll make you the sect leader of Mount Shu." "Really?" Guo Wei's eyes were filled with joy. Ding Qingyang was completely disappointed. "You unfilial disciple, I have treated you well. Don't you feel guilty for betraying your master?" Ding Qingyang gritted his teeth and said. Guo Wei turned around and looked apologetic. Eventually, he became determined. "Master, you have treated me well, and I will remember it in my heart. However, a wise man submits to circumstances. Mr. Yuqi's divine power is unparalleled, and I have no choice." "You." Ding Qingyang was so angry that his entire body was shaking. Yuqi Lai, on the other hand, was laughing proudly. "Mr. Li, it is not too late for you to escape. My brother and I will buy time for you, even if we have to fight to the death." Ding Qingxue bit her lip and looked determined. However, Li Changsheng shook his head and looked up at Yuqi Lai in the sky. "Old man Yuqi, do you really think that I am a fish on the chopping board for you to kill? Is that not the case?" Yuqi Lai laughed and said, "Li Changsheng, I know that you are strong. Otherwise, you would not have been able to destroy the Huashan sect. However, you are still too young. 30 years later, you might be qualified to fight with me. However, you can only accept your death now. The strength of the Vajra realm is not something you can imagine." After Yuqi Lai finished speaking, he looked at Li Changsheng mockingly. In his eyes, everything was in his control today. Whether it was Li Changsheng, Ding Qingyang, or Sima Changkong, they were all like ants to him. Is the Vajra realm that great? Li Changsheng suddenly took a step forward and rose into the sky. He only stopped when he reached the same height as Yuqi Lai. Seeing Li Changsheng rise into the sky, Yuqi Lai's face suddenly changed. Flying is a skill that only the Vajra realm can use. Could this Li Changsheng be a Vajra realm expert? Yuqi Lai's eyes narrowed. However, when he saw the flying sword under Li Changsheng's feet, he heaved a sigh of relief. So, he is borrowing the power of the flying sword. He is not really at the Vajra realm. At this moment, Li Changsheng smiled coldly and said, "Although I am not at the Vajra realm, I can still kill a martial artist at the Vajra realm." As soon as he finished speaking, the flying sword under his feet suddenly burst into a dazzling golden light. It became 100 feet long in the sky and slashed down at Yuqi Lai. Chapter 401. The sword seemed to have cut the entire world in half. The sword aura, which was hundreds of meters long, cut across the sky and headed straight for Yuqi Lai. Yuqi Lai's expression changed when he saw the sword that was as powerful as the heavens. He retreated hundreds of meters to avoid the sword attack. The sword aura cut a long trench on the ground, which was hundreds of meters deep. The expressions of everyone who witnessed this sword changed drastically. "You are not in the Vajra realm. How can the sword aura be hundreds of meters long?" Yuqi Lai stared at Li Changsheng, feeling incredulous. The force that he casually shot out was only about a dozen meters long. Compared to Li Changsheng's sword aura, the difference was like heaven and earth. "Swordsmen are sharp. This is my way of the sword. How can an ordinary person like you know the power of my supreme way of the sword?" Li Changsheng said loudly. At that moment, the heart-wishful sword had become 3 feet long, and he was holding it in his hand. There was nothing under his feet but he was still able to stand in the air. Li Changsheng, I was wondering how you could have destroyed the Huashan sect with the protection of the Supreme Formation. It seems that I have underestimated you. You are still too young and have not broken through to the Vajra realm. How can you know how terrifying the Vajra realm is? Yuchi Lai put away the surprise on his face, and his body continued to rise into the air. Huashan is also a swordsman sect. Our way of the sword is not inferior to any other lineage. Today, I will let you see the supreme way of the sword of Huashan sect, the sword of nothingness. Yuchi Lai's body was about to rise into the clouds, and he looked very small when seen from below. He raised his hands, and the white clouds in the sky behind him started to condense rapidly. In the end, they turned into a huge cloud sword. It seemed to have gathered the power of the entire sky, and it came down on Li Changsheng from above. When the sword fell, the wind and clouds surged, and the power was enough to penetrate a small mountain. However, Li Changsheng's expression did not change. He had been at the pinnacle countless times over the years, and had seen all kinds of magic. It is just a small trick. Li Changsheng sneered. The heart's wishful sword in his hand once again burst with light, directly meeting the descending cloud sword. The sword light was resplendent and actually cut the cloud sword in half in an instant. At the same time, Li Changsheng took a step forward, and his body shot up into the sky. In an instant, he was in front of Yuchi Lai. Yuchi Lai's face showed no signs of panic. Instead, he sneered. Li Changsheng, do you think that the ultimate technique of my Huashan sect is only this powerful? His hands danced, and the cloud sword that Li Changsheng had shattered instantly turned into tens of thousands of small swords. Like a storm, they all rushed towards Li Changsheng. No matter how many tricks you have up your sleeve, I will break them all with a single sword strike. Li Changsheng swung his sword again. The sword light formed a sword net in front of Li Changsheng. The dense cloud swords that flew over were all blocked by the sword net, unable to do anything to Li Changsheng. Yuchi Lai, you want to kill me and avenge the disciples of the Huashan sect with just this little bit of power? What a joke. If you have no other tricks up your sleeve, then die. Li Changsheng raised the heart's wishful sword and cut through the air, directly slashing at Yuchi Lai. The sword light was dazzling, and it was full of sharp, killing intent. At that moment, Yuchi Lai no longer looked confident. He thought that he had broken through to the Vajra realm, and that he was already the top expert in the world of cultivators. Li Changsheng was just a young man. Even if he had been cultivating since he was in his mother's womb, no matter how talented he was, he would have been completely suppressed by him. However, he never thought that Li Changsheng's understanding of swordsmanship would be so terrifying. His attacks were unable to do anything to Li Changsheng, especially when Li Changsheng used the heart's wishful sword, the treasure of the Huashan sect, to deal with him. Being suppressed by the treasures of their own sect, it was as sullen as it could get. Li Changsheng, you forced my hand. Yuchi Lai's eyes were filled with madness. He waved his hands and condensed a river of sword aura in front of him, roaring towards Li Changsheng. This is a move that I created by reading through the books of the Huashan sect and combining all of my swordsmanship experience. I haven't had the time to give a name yet. It is your honor to die under this move. Yuchi Lai laughed. He stood in midair and continued to pour out spiritual ether. It made the river of sword aura look even more spectacular, as if it had really attracted the Milky Way from the sky. At that moment, even Li Changsheng's attacks were stagnant. Countless spectators below were dazzled by what they saw. Is this the power of a Vajra realm expert? It is terrifying to the extreme. Ascending to the sky and gathering the chi of heaven and earth to form magic, he was like a god. Yuchi Lai is the supreme elder of Huashan and the top expert in the world of cultivators today. To be able to witness this battle today, I have no regrets even if I die. An elder of a swordsmanship sect said with emotion. That Li Changsheng is not simple either. He is so young, and his swordsmanship is so profound. He has not broken through to the Vajra realm, but he has been fighting with Yuchi Lai for such a long time. It is not an exaggeration to call him a peerless genius. Someone next to him said with emotion, "What a pity! If he was given 30 years to grow, perhaps even Yuchi Lai would have to run for his life if he saw him. I'm afraid he will die today. With Yuchi Lai's strength, that Li Changsheng has no chance of surviving. It is Li Changsheng's fault for being too arrogant and wiping out all of the Huashan sect. Otherwise, he would not be in this mess today." Countless people were sighing with regret. Ding Qingyang and his sister, on the other hand, looked worried. It seemed that while Li Changsheng was powerful, he was obviously at a disadvantage. Guo Wei, who was in the crowd, looked at the sky, and his body trembled slightly. He had only just seen Li Changsheng's strength. He could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground like a human deity. This was a scene that he had only dreamed of countless times, but it was happening right in front of his eyes. "You are so strong. Fortunately, you're going to die today," Guo Wei muttered to himself. In the sky, Yuchi Lai focused all of his strength on this one attack. The sword hit the river, which was hundreds of feet long, and the sword aura was raging. It destroyed everything that had a shape. Wherever it passed, even the air was shattered. Li Changsheng was shrouded in the sword aura river, and the dense sword aura kept attacking Li Changsheng's body. Countless holes had appeared on his clothes, and it seemed that he would be torn to pieces by the sword aura river at any time. Facing such a move, even Li Changsheng had to admit that Yuchi Lai was indeed unique in his swordsmanship. Even someone at the peak of the Vajra realm might not be able to withstand such strength. It is not easy to reach this level in the swordsmanship. It is a pity that you should not have made me your enemy. Li Changsheng sighed softly. His voice was almost inaudible under the raging sword aura. Just when Yuchi Lai thought that Li Changsheng was going to be completely destroyed by his sword aura. In the next moment, Li Changsheng put away the heart-wishful sword, raised his palm, and punched forward. He had lived for tens of thousands of years and had gone through 99 thunder tribulations. Li Changsheng's trump card was not the countless techniques that he had practiced, nor was it his understanding of swordsmanship or martial arts. It was his almost invincible physical body. Chapter 402. Rumble. As Li Changsheng punched out, the entire world was filled with a roaring sound. In the river of sword aura, a fist force pierced through. It split the river of sword aura in half and opened up a path for the fist in the void, shooting toward Yuchi Lai's body. "This!" Yuchi Lai sucked in a cold breath. He waved his hands and condensed the river of sword aura that Li Changsheng had cut in front of him, forming a barrier. However, under the powerful fist force, the barrier was instantly broken from the middle and turned into countless messy sword aura, flying in all directions in the sky. Then Li Changsheng's body leaped high, like an eagle flying in the sky, and swooped down from the sky. His fist had terrifying energy, shaking the sky. "Yuchi Lai, today I will let you know that the gap between realms is not insurmountable." Li Changsheng's voice rang in the sky and spread in all directions. His fist made the sound of wind and thunder, changing the color of the sky. The people below looked up at the sky and saw Li Changsheng's body like a cannonball, aiming at the target and blasting down. The sound of the wind brought by the fist was no weaker than the roar of a fighter jet. The sound was oppressive, and the power was soul-stirring. Yuchi Lai had broken through to the later stage of the Vajra realm before he could fly in the sky and perform all kinds of incredible magic in the sky. However, at this moment, Li Changsheng was obviously not in the Vajra realm, but he displayed unparalleled combat power, which was even more terrifying than Yuchi Lai's. How can he be so strong? Yuchi Lai's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with horror. He roared and took off his Taoist robe, throwing it in front of him. The robe instantly spun and became 100 feet long, protecting him under it. This robe was actually a high-level magic artifact. As the robe spun, the yin and yang 8 trigrams pattern on it shone brightly, exuding divine power. Crack! Li Changsheng's fist came down from the sky and smashed directly on the Taoist robe. This high-level magic artifact, which was known for its defensive power, had a hole torn in it by the fist. Then, it instantly shattered into countless pieces, fluttering in the sky. After the fist tore the Taoist robe, it landed directly in front of Yuchi-Lai. Rumble! Whirlwinds surged, as if the god of thunder was enraged, shaking the 9 heavens. At this moment, Yuchi-Lai crossed his arms and conjured a yin-yang 8 trigrams pattern to meet the fist, but it was instantly smashed by the fist. The yin-yang 8 trigrams pattern was smashed into pieces, and the powerful fist force landed on his chest. Like a kite with a broken string, he was sent flying hundreds of meters away. It only stopped when it hit the ground and smashed 7 trees that were as thick as a few people's arms. At this moment, the entire place fell into silence. Such a brilliant battle dazzled everyone who saw it. At the same time, a sense of insignificance arose in his heart. Such an attack contained the power to shatter gold and shatter stone with just a wave of his hand. These self-proclaimed masters of the martial arts world sadly discovered that a casual blow could send their souls to the netherworld. Guowei, who was standing there, was pale and trembling all over. Yuchi-Lai was such a powerful person, yet he had been beaten by Li Changsheng to the point where he could not even fight back. The legs of Yuchi-Lai's disciple, who was next to him, were shaking. Yuchi-Lai was no doubt an invincible deity in his heart, but now he was blasted to the ground by Li Changsheng from the sky with one punch. Ding Qingyang and his sister's eyes were filled with excitement. They thought that Mount Shu sect would go through a catastrophe today, but they did not expect such a turn of events. Li Changsheng, I will tear you to pieces. A roar came from the woods. A figure suddenly soared into the sky, leaving behind an afterimage in the sky, rushing towards Li Changsheng's location. It was Yuchi-Lai, who had been blasted to the ground by Li Changsheng. At this moment, Yuchi-Lai's hair was disheveled, and his face was full of embarrassment, but his eyes were full of murderous intent. Go to hell! Yuchi-Lai roared. In his hand, a long sword was shining. This was a sword that his master had personally forged for him when he embarked on the path of swordsmanship. Over the years, as his realm increased, this sword had been constantly tempered, and it could be said to be his life sword. This sword was closely related to him, and he saw it as an object of his path. He had not intended to use it, because this sword represented his trump card. If he used this sword, it would have been a matter of life and death, but he had no choice but to use it now. Li Changsheng's strength was too terrifying, and in front of so many swordsmanship sects, he was blasted to the ground from the sky. If he did not kill Li Changsheng, he would never be able to clear his mind, and it would even cause him to have inner demons. Swordsmen bravely moved forward, and there was no retreat. So, this sword had to be used, even if he had activated a secret skill and burned his blood and life force. His body rushed to the sky, and in the air, Yuchi-Lai seemed to have merged with this sword. Man and sword became one. This was the supreme realm of swordsmanship. If it had not been for this desperate situation, Yuchi-Lai would have had to wait until he broke through to the finger-profound realm to comprehend it. Li Changsheng, you didn't expect this, did you? I have to thank you. Yuchi-Lai let out a hearty laugh. However, Li Changsheng shook his head. You've only touched the threshold of being one with the sword. Even if you really comprehend this realm of swordsmanship, in my eyes, you're nothing. As soon as his voice fell, Li Changsheng raised his fist again and punched out. Boom! As this punch landed, an extremely terrifying energy surged out. It formed a mighty fist force in front of his eyes and whistled down. The air in front of him was directly pushed to the sides, and even the void was about to be shattered. The monstrous fist force crushed down mercilessly, and the first to collide with the fist force was the life sword, which was directly smashed into countless pieces. Immediately after, Yuchi-Lai's body was hit by the fist force, and he let out a shrill scream. His lower abdomen was directly penetrated by the fist, and then his entire body was torn apart, turning into a cloud of blood mist that fell from the sky and fluttered. Hiss. Everyone who witnessed all of this sucked in a breath of cold air as a deep chill surged in their hearts. Yin Shuangying of the Qingchang sect, the sect leaders of the various sword sects, the heads of the martial arts families, Ding Qingyang, Ding Qingxue, and Sima Changkong. Everyone present was stunned, as if they had been paralyzed, and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. After the mighty fist force tore Yuchi Lai to pieces, it bombarded the ground. It was the same forest where Yuchi Lai had fallen from the sky. Dozens of ancient trees, which were thick enough for 3 to 5 people to wrap their arms around, were cut in half and turned into sawdust, fluttering in the air. There was a huge, deep pit under the ground, which was dozens of meters deep. The mountain next to it gently swayed 3 times. The power of one punch was so terrifying that it was truly earth-shattering. Chapter 4:03. Everyone looked at the figure standing proudly in the sky. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Huashan Sect's Supreme Elder Yuchi Lai, a Vajra realm expert, was dead. Li Changsheng punched him and turned him into a pile of debris. Not even his bones were left. The fall of a powerhouse also represented the rise of another powerhouse. Yuchi Lai was already the person who stood at the top of the cultivation world, and Li Changsheng's appearance would undoubtedly indicate that Li Changsheng would replace Yuchi Lai's position and become the first person in the cultivation world. Even Yuchi Lai, who was at the Vajra realm, was defeated by him. Could he be at the peak of the Vajra realm or the Finger Profound realm? Yin Shuangying of the Qingchang sword sect muttered to himself. He can kill Yuchi Lai with one punch. What does it matter what realm he is at? Among all the experts in the world today, there is no one who can match him. Sima Changkong also sighed. When one of his arms was cut off by Li Changsheng, he had thought that he could get back at him one day. Now that he thought about it, he realized how naive he was back then. If Li Changsheng had used even half of his strength, he was afraid that his end would not have been any better than Yuchi Lai's. On the high platform, Ding Qingxue's eyes were shining. In every girl's heart, there was a superhero who wore a golden armor and stepped on colorful clouds. And now, Li Changsheng was undoubtedly the unparalleled hero in Ding Qingxue's heart. He shone with boundless radiance and was so handsome that it was a complete mess. In the next moment, Li Changsheng's eyes fell on Guo Wei. Guo Wei hurriedly knelt on the ground. "Mr. Li, please spare my life." I was confused. However, before he could finish his words, he saw a green light fall from the sky. He fell straight to the ground and shut his mouth forever. Everyone has the right to punish those who betray their masters and ancestors. Li Changsheng's indifferent voice came down from the sky. Ding Qingyang's eyes showed that he could not bear to see Guo Wei like that. Finally, he sighed. If he had been the one to punish Guo Wei, he might have been soft-hearted and let Guo Wei go. It was precisely because Li Changsheng saw through this that he decided to kill him. The other youth standing with Guo Wei was Yuchi Lai's disciple. All the grudges are between me, the Huashan sect, and Yuchi Lai. You have just become his disciple, and you are innocent. Go back to the borderlands and look for your father. Li Changsheng said indifferently. The young man seemed to be surprised that Li Changsheng didn't kill him, and his face showed some joy. No matter who it was something worth being happy about. However, he did not leave immediately. Instead, he looked up at Li Changsheng and said loudly, "I am still very weak today, but one day I will defeat you fair and square and avenge my master." After the young man finished speaking, he turned around and proudly walked towards the exit. However, before he could take 2 steps, Li Changsheng waved his hand and a beam of sword light descended from the sky, piercing through the young man's back and ending his life. Suddenly, there was an uproar. Ding Qingyang was even more puzzled and asked, "Mr. Li, since you said that you would let him go, why did you suddenly kill him?" Hearing Ding Qingyang's question, Li Changsheng descended from the sky and stood on the high platform, saying indifferently, "The reason why I let him go was because I thought that he was an innocent person and I didn't want to kill more people. However, he was still thinking about avenging his master, so he was no longer innocent. I will not leave a hidden danger for myself. Since I said that I would let him go, I can also go back on my word. It is all up to me. Hearing Li Changxing's words, Ding Qingyang fell silent. The leaders of the surrounding Sword Dao sects nodded in agreement. At first, when Li Changsheng killed the young man, everyone felt that Li Changsheng did not do it right, as he had promised to let the young man go. However, after thinking about it, Li Changxing's way of doing things was worthy of approval. Knowing that the young man would become his enemy one day, he still kept the young man alive. That was not kindness, but stupidity. So many things have happened today, and I'm a little tired. I'll go back and rest first. Please help yourselves. After Li Changsheng finished speaking, he went straight back to his room. The Sword Alliance conference had come to an end. Although the Alliance leader succession ceremony had been interrupted halfway and wasn't perfect, it was still the perfect ending. Li Changsheng had just succeeded as the Sword Alliance master, but he had killed the current top expert in the cultivation world and established his reputation. After today, the name Li Changsheng would probably be well known in the entire martial Dao world. Everyone in the world knew him. On the second day after the inauguration ceremony, Ding Qingxue came to Li Changxing's room. Now that Li Changxing's battle had shocked the world, the prestige of the Mount Shu sword sect had also soared. However, Ding Qingxue did not look good. Is your brother still sad about Guo Wei's death? Ding Qingxue nodded. Although my brother knows that Guo Wei deserved to die, he was still regarded as the successor of his legacy. Doesn't your brother have another disciple? You're talking about Zhou Xing, right? Zhou Xing is a disciple that my brother took in the secular world. His potential is limited, not to mention that his foundation was damaged by you last time, and he hasn't recovered yet. He didn't return to the Mount Shu sect with us, and instead went to explore the world. Zhou Xing's departure has already made my brother very sad, and now Guo Wei has made him even more disheartened. Seeing Ding Qingxue's haggard appearance, Li Changxing knew that she was worried about her brother. He sighed faintly and did not know what to say. After a few minutes of silence, he said, I'm leaving today too. Your brother is the sect master of Mount Shu after all. You should counsel him. Okay. There was a hint of reluctance in Ding Qingxue's eyes. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, she did not say anything. Li Changsheng did not have anything to pack. He got up and walked out of the room, but the moment he stepped out, Ding Qingxue suddenly reached out and hugged him. Feeling the softness on his back, Li Changxing's body could not help but stiffen. Ding Qingxue leaned her head against Li Changxing's back and closed her eyes tightly. She wondered if she would stay in this position until her hair turned white. After more than 10 minutes, Ding Qingxue finally let go. Ding Qingxue turned her head away and said, Remember to come back and see me. Li Changsheng was about to say something, but Ding Qingxue had already walked into the room and closed the door with a bang. Looking at the tightly closed door and imagining the way she leaned against it, Li Changsheng finally sighed, took out the heart-wishful sword, and soared into the sky. He did not choose to take a helicopter because taking a plane required a special pilot. He was afraid that he would be reluctant to leave if he delayed. It was said that a gentle home was the grave of a hero, and Li Changsheng was no exception. It was not until Li Changsheng left that the tightly closed door opened. Ding Qingxue looked at the empty sky, and her heart felt empty as if she had lost something. Her nose was slightly sour. Chapter 404. When they left Shushan and returned to Qingzhou, it happened to be snowing heavily. It was as if the entire world had become clean. Li Changsheng received a call from Qi Xian when he returned to the villa. Actually, Qi Xian had called Li Changsheng several times in the past 2 days. Unfortunately, the phone signal was almost paralyzed in the depths of Shushan, and there was no signal at all. Now that they were back in Qingzhou, Qi Xian finally got through. Mr. Li, where are you now? It's almost the new year. My dad asked me to invite you to my house. I'm in Qingzhou now. Li Changxing smiled. Hearing Qi Xian's words, Li Changsheng realized that it was indeed only a few days away from the new year. More than half of the winter break had passed. "Can I come to your house?" Qi Xian asked carefully. "Of course. Come." After hanging up, more than 10 minutes later, a sporty Maserati sports car stopped in front of Li Changsheng's villa. Qi Xian got out of the car. Li Changsheng remembered that the last time he saw Qi Xian, he hadn't driven this car yet. This Maserati exuded a brand-new aura from head to toe, and the license plate was from Qingzhou. Seeing that Li Changsheng was looking at his car, Qi Xian chuckled and said, "I just bought this yesterday. It's my mode of transportation in Qingzhou. How is it, Mr. Li? Is it pretty?" Hearing Qi Xian's words, Li Changsheng felt a little helpless. Some people couldn't afford such a sports car, even if they worked hard for their entire lives. For the rich, it was just a temporary mode of transportation. There were many unfairness in this world. It was pure bullsh** to say that everyone was equal. Li Changsheng couldn't help but shake his head and think, why did I suddenly become so cynical? He smiled and let Qi Xian enter the house. Thinking that he really didn't have anywhere to go for the new year, he decided to follow Qi Xian back to his house. However, he made an agreement with Qi Xian beforehand that he couldn't give him special treatment. He would just treat it as if he suddenly had a servant in the house. Qi Xian said fearfully, "I wouldn't dare to treat Mr. Li as a servant." However, he still remembered Li Changsheng's instructions. Qiyu secretly sent a message to his dad, who was thousands of miles away, telling him about Li Changsheng's intention. He hurriedly gave up the idea of holding a grand welcome ceremony for Li Changsheng. Although he had promised Qi Xian to go back with him, Li Changsheng was in no hurry to set off. She stayed in Qingzhou for a few more days to help Yue Wei buy clothes for the new year. Then, she went to the Chu family to see Chu Yaotian. However, he didn't see Chu Meng. Ever since the banquet, Chu Meng seemed to hold a grudge against Li Changsheng. When she heard that Li Changsheng was coming, she hid in her room and didn't come out. Chu Yaotian sent people to call them twice, but the door was closed and no one answered. It wasn't until Li Changsheng left that the curtains of the room slowly opened, revealing a face full of hidden bitterness. 3 days before the new year, Li Changsheng and Qi Xian set off on their journey home. Qi Xian's family spent the new year in their hometown. It was originally a poor little mountain village, but because of Qi Yu, Qi Xian became rich. After Qi Yu became rich, he went back to invest in his hometown, making the small mountain village a famous tourist attraction. Moreover, he built a group of villas in the village that occupied 10 acres of land, just like a palace. If such an excessive building was placed anywhere else, it would cause a lot of complaints. However, in that village, the villagers were proud of it. In the end, because of Qi Yu, this small mountain village produced several millionaires. Even the poorest family could earn a few 100,000 yuan a year. This was something that other places couldn't compare to. Humans knew how to be grateful. Although the villagers didn't have much experience, they knew who made them live a good life. It was true that unruly people came from barren hills and turbulent rivers, but ungrateful people were in the minority. As the young master of the Qi family, Qi Xian was no different from the crown prince in the village. In addition, Qi Yu had several large companies under his name, so there were many people who came to run errands before and after the new year. Hearing that Qi Xian was coming back, there were already several well-dressed elites in suits waiting at the entrance of the village. Those half-bald, pot-bellied company CEOs threw away their usual strict and dignified manner in front of their subordinates, and all of them had smiles and flattery on their faces. When Qi Xian's Maserati entered the village entrance, someone set off firecrackers. This reminded Li Changsheng of the night when he first arrived at the Mount Shu Sword sect. Fireworks bloomed. However, Qi Xian's status and popularity in the Qi family village were much higher than Li Changsheng's when he first arrived at the Mount Shu Sword sect. Pa! 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 The firecrackers went off. A few CEOs who held great power in the Qi family's industrial chain rushed forward eagerly. Only a few fellows at the back, who had eaten too much and moved slower, suddenly realized that the big boss Qi Yu, who stood at the top of the Qi family's industrial chain, had made an unprecedented appearance today. A few fat, middle-aged men immediately showed terrified expressions. Even though they were now generals in charge of the Chi family group, they were still in awe and fear of this big boss from the bottom of their hearts. "Big boss, you also came out to pick up young master?" A fat fellow took the initiative to approach. Chi smiled and didn't say anything. There was no reason for a father to pick up his son. He came out for his boss. The car door opened, and Qi Xian stepped out first. He was immediately surrounded by a group of senior executives. Some flattered him, while others took things. Each of them had their own duties, and the division of labor was clear. As for the ordinary young man who came after Qi Xian, although a few CEOs looked at him suspiciously, they quickly focused their attention on Qi Xian and didn't pay much attention to him. They just thought that he was Qi Xian's classmate or friend. In the past few years, Qi Xian would also bring a few friends back to celebrate the new year with him. There were children of poor and wealthy families, but no matter how wealthy they paled in comparison to the Qi family. Everyone surrounded Qi Xian, and Qi Xian was afraid that Li Changsheng would be left out, so he was about to shoo these annoying flies aside. Just then, he saw his father, Qi Yu, walking over quickly. This time, Qi Xian didn't need to say anything. Those CEOs sensibly kept the distance from Qi Xian and made way for him, not daring to hinder the father and son's reunion. However, what they didn't expect was that Qi Yu didn't walk toward his son. Instead, he walked directly to Li Changsheng with a hearty smile and gave Li Changsheng a big bear hug. "Mr. Li, I missed you so much." This action stunned everyone present as they looked at each other in dismay. They thought, who is this young man? He actually made the big boss welcome him personally. Chapter 405. As everyone knew, Sick Tiger Qi Yu had 3 generals who assisted him in conquering splendid country. Demon Blade Nalan Yuding was famous for her martial strength. Divine Spear He Yiming was said to be an expert in firearms. From the Type 54 pistol to the Butler sniper rifle, he was proficient in all kinds of domestic and foreign firearms. Ghost Fox Gao Jianda's strength lay not in his skills, but in his wisdom. When Qi Yu emerged from the bloody underworld and established his dynasty, Nalan Yuding and He Yiming were the ones who helped Qi Yu the most. But now, Gao Jianda was the one who built the entire business empire. Gao Jianda was dealing with some personnel changes in the company, so he didn't come to the Qi family's villa. Divine Spear He Yiming happened to be there. As for Qi Yu's other right-hand man, Nalan Yuding, he broke a leg when he came back from Qingzhou. Later, he mysteriously disappeared from the face of the earth. Many people were speculating about the reason. There was a vague rumor that he had offended someone in Qingzhou who shouldn't be offended. Of course, if Qi Yu didn't say anything, no one dared to ask or investigate. He Yiming was the father of He Lei, the girl who had always liked Qi Xian, whom Li Changsheng had met last time. His daughter was 70% similar to him, so when Li Changsheng saw this man, he recognized him at a glance. He Yiming was also looking at Li Changsheng curiously, thinking that as the boss's confidant, he had no impression of the young man in front of him. Could he be the son of some big boss to be able to make the boss come out to greet him personally? Qi Yu had been able to grow in the north over the years, not only because of his iron hand and strong team, but also because of the huge circle of contacts he had managed. For Qi Yu, who sometimes appeared to be very approachable, it was understandable if he came out to greet a junior to show his respect. But Li Changsheng's ordinary clothes didn't seem like it. Next to him, a guy who had a good relationship with He Yiming whispered, "Could it be an illegitimate child of the big boss's love affair?" As soon as he said this, He Yiming immediately glared at him. But the moment he turned around, he suddenly felt that the other party's guess seemed to be somewhat reasonable. "You're a man. What's wrong with hugging?" Li Changsheng said with a look of disgust. Only then did Qi Yu retract his hand. If it weren't for the fact that he had to give Qi Yu some face in front of his subordinates, Li Changsheng would have already kicked him to the ground. He didn't have any special hobbies. However, when Qi Yu's subordinates saw this scene, they were undoubtedly extremely shocked. He Yiming slightly frowned. In his opinion, it was already a great honor for the big boss to personally come out to greet them. This young man seemed to be pushing his luck, but since Chi Yu himself didn't say anything, he could only keep his dissatisfaction in his heart. Let's go. Let me see what the kennel you built looks like. Li Changsheng stepped forward with a smile. Chi Yu eagerly followed at the side. On the other side, the higher-ups hurriedly followed behind. He Yiming originally wanted to stop Qi Xian and ask the identity of this guy who didn't know the rules at all. However, Qi Xian had been accompanying Li Changsheng, so he didn't have a chance to ask. A group of people walked into the Qi family's villa majestically. Li Changsheng glanced around. Except for the largest building in the center, there were more than a dozen majestic buildings around it. It really did have the flavor of a small forbidden city. After entering the hall, Qiu originally wanted Li Changsheng to sit in the main seat, but Li Changsheng shook his head slightly and said that he didn't want to be treated specially. He just wanted to spend a new year in peace. So, he had to let Li Changsheng sit on the side seat. This side seat was originally He Yiming's seat, but now it was taken by Li Changsheng, so he had to sit below. Looking at Li Changsheng, who was chatting and laughing with Qi Yu, this general of Qi Yu's was quite dissatisfied. Because he was afraid that the food would taste bad if it was cooked too early, the chef didn't start cooking until Li Changsheng came in. About 10 minutes later, the banquet officially started. The table was full of delicacies. It was said that the chef was the descendant of the imperial chef that Qi Yu had spent a lot of money to hire. He was proficient in several cuisines. Because he knew that Li Changsheng wasn't an ordinary person, Qi Yu didn't dare to add more dishes for Li Changsheng. Qi Xian, on the other hand, would put the dishes in Li Changsheng's bowl whenever he saw which dishes were famous. This made many people who wanted to find out Li Changsheng's identity slightly disappointed. Apart from Li Changsheng, who was a little hungry and ate a little more, the others basically didn't touch their chopsticks. Of course, they had to be more reserved in front of the big boss. After the meal, they didn't find any clues. He Yiming took the initiative to lead the topic to Li Changsheng several times, but Qi Yu didn't respond at all. Li Changsheng was even more indifferent to He Yiming's several attempts to get information out of him, which made He Yiming quite angry. The number 2 figure of the Qi group was actually ignored by a young man of about 20 years old. After the meal, Li Changsheng took out a cigarette from his pocket. Qi Xian hurriedly took out a lighter to light the cigarette for him. Everyone at the table was dumbfounded. Unexpectedly, Qi Yu suddenly stood up and stopped his son's action. Many people became spirited and thought, is the big boss dissatisfied with the young man's behavior and is going to get angry? He Yiming was even more expectant. Unexpectedly, after Qi Yu stopped his son's action, a lighter appeared in his hand like a magic trick, and then he bent down to light Li Changsheng's cigarette. The action of lighting the cigarette was very natural. Li Changsheng took a deep puff of the cigarette and showed a somewhat enjoyable expression. He thought, smoking has become a habit unconsciously. This is not good. After lighting the cigarette for Li Changsheng, Qi Yu lit one for himself, ignoring the shocked subordinates next to him, whose eyeballs were about to fall out, and said to He Yiming, who was also in a daze. Later, you call Gao Jinda and ask him to put aside the company's affairs and come back to see Mr. Li. Didn't he always ask me how I saw his talent at a glance when he was at his lowest? You tell him, and he will have the answer when he comes back. He Yiming reacted and nodded, but his heart was still in turmoil. He never dared to delay the big boss's orders. Qi Yu's swift and decisive personality affected every one of his subordinates. He hurried to the corner and called Gao Jinda, who was known as Ghost Fox. Just when he was on the phone, he quietly looked at Li Changsheng, who was sitting there smoking. This seemingly ordinary young man seemed to have an amazing background. Chapter 406. Other than the first welcome banquet, when Li Changsheng and Qi Yu's subordinates gathered at the same table to eat, Qi Yu and his son accompanied Li Changsheng for every meal afterward. The other subordinates were not qualified to attend the banquet at all. This gave Yi Yiming, who wanted to figure out Li Changsheng's identity, no chance at all. Qi Xian basically revolved around Li Changsheng. In the past few days, he had taken the initiative to learn some martial arts knowledge from Li Changsheng. Qi Xian was willing to learn and was willing to put in the effort. Li Changsheng also appreciated this point. Occasionally, a few words of advice would have the effect of enlightening him. This allowed Qi Xian's martial arts to improve day by day. Qi Yu's think tank, Gao Jianda, who was known as Ghost Fox, rushed back on the third day after Li Changsheng arrived at the Qi residence. It happened to be New Year's Eve. Gao Jianda was very thin, and when his eyes were closed, he gave off a shrewd feeling. When he saw Li Changsheng, he didn't know why Qi Yu called him back from afar just to see a young man. However, when Qi Yu said that he had been living on the streets back then, it was because Li Changsheng had said, "This kid has the potential to be a prime minister." That was why he had decided to take him in. Suddenly, Gao Jianda thought of something, and his eyes revealed a look of disbelief. The moment he saw Li Changsheng, he felt that he was familiar, but he couldn't believe it. After more than 30 years, there was actually someone who could maintain the same appearance. He was so excited that he almost knelt down and kowtowed to Li Changsheng a few times in public. When Gao Jianda came out of Li Changsheng's place, he Yiming, who had been waiting outside for a long time, couldn't wait to ask. "I say, Brother Gao, what's the identity of that kid inside?" He actually made Big Boss run over to him every day. If it were a charming beauty, it would be fine, but it just had to be an average-looking man. I really can't understand. When Gao Jianda heard this, his face revealed some mystery. He pulled He Yiming to a remote place and then said mysteriously, "Big Boss once told us that the reason he was able to rise in the wilderness back then was because of someone's support. Do you still remember?" "Of course I remember." He Yiming nodded. "It's just that it said that the big shot has already disappeared for more than 30 years. Could it be that this kid is actually that big shot's descendant?" No wonder. He Yiming thought that he had guessed the truth of the matter and revealed a look of realization. Unexpectedly, Gao Jianda shook his head. "You're wrong. He's not the descendant of that big shot, but that big shot himself." "What?" He Yiming, who had just taken out a cigarette and was about to light it, was so scared that his hand trembled and the cigarette fell to the ground. He stared at Gao Jianda in disbelief. "I say, Director Gao, are you kidding me? That kid is only 20 years old. You said that he helped the big boss 30 years ago. How is that possible? Why not? Do you know who Nailin Yuding offended the last time she went to Qingzhou and came back with a broken leg? Don't tell me you're the one who provoked this brat." He Yiming's heart jumped. Like him, Nailin Yuding was Qi Yu's right-hand man, but her leg was injured after a trip to Qingzhou. Not long after, she completely disappeared from the world. He had never figured out the reason. He thought that Qi Yu wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river, cook the hound after the cunning rabbit, and put away the bow after the birds have flown. He had been cautious for a long time. He didn't expect Gao Jianda to tell him that it was because of this young man. Looking at Qi Yu's attitude towards Li Changsheng, He Yiming really believed that Qi Yu would punish Nailin Yuding for Li Changsheng. But if he said that Li Changsheng could stay young forever, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. He's proficient in immortal magic, and his kung fu is first class. Nailin Yuding's leg was crippled by him. Gao Jianda said with certainty, but He Yiming still didn't believe it in his heart. But he just buried it in the bottom of his heart. The Northern New Year's Eve had a custom of enduring the year. After dinner, everyone gathered in the hall. Li Changsheng and Qi Yu's subordinates had dinner at the same table for the second time. This time, there were obviously fewer people than the last time. Several company bosses went back to their homes to celebrate the new year, but some still chose to stay here. For many people, being able to celebrate the new year in the Qi family's mansion represented an honor and recognition. Because the long night was boring, He Yiming took the initiative to propose to go to the Qi family's back garden to play a real-life CF game. Many of Qi Yu's subordinates were ruthless people who fought with him in the past. Although they were a little old now, their strength had not weakened much. As soon as they heard He Yiming's proposal, they immediately raised their hands to agree. Li Changsheng was too lazy to participate, but He Yiming insisted on dragging Li Changsheng to play together. Li Changsheng had to agree. In the end, they were divided into two groups to compete. He Yiming, Gao Jianda, and 6 other people were in one group, while Li Changsheng, Qi Xian, and several company bosses were in the other group. Chi did not participate. He was the big boss. If he participated, others would not be able to move freely. The game began. Because there were many rockery in the back garden, the environment was 80% similar to the wilderness. In addition, the night was a natural camouflage. After everyone entered the back garden, they quickly disappeared without a trace. At this moment, at a rockery in the back garden, Gao Jianda and He Yiming each had a cigarette in their mouths. Gao Jianda was the first to break the silence. He Yiming, today's game was arranged by you long ago, right? You want to use this to test Mr. Li's depth, right? There are two teams. Li Changxing's team is made up of serious businessmen. All of them are full of fat. Not to mention playing with guns, it would be difficult for them to even run 100 meters. On your side, other than a weak scholar like me, the rest are fierce people who followed the big boss through life and death. To put it bluntly, any one of them can kill everyone on that side, except Mr. Li and Young Master. Sure enough, I can't hide from your ghostly fox eyes. He Yiming chuckled. You praise that Li Changsheng as if he's an immortal from heaven, but I don't believe it. How many minutes do you think that Li Changsheng can survive under the pursuit of my 6 great generals? He'll probably be eliminated in less than the time it takes to smoke a cigarette. Originally, I wanted to give it a try myself, but after thinking about it, I'm afraid he'll be eliminated in less than 30 seconds with my sharpshooter. It's too much of a bully to deal with a young boy in my field of expertise. Hearing He Yiming's confident words, Gao Jianda smiled and shook his head. Yiming, you think that sending 6 strong subordinates is a sure win, but in my opinion, this is just your wishful thinking. Is it? He Yiming smiled confidently. Why don't we make a bet? Chapter 407. What's the bet? Gao Jianda was also a little interested. If I win, you will transfer the shares given to you by the big bosses in Chuzhou City to me. If I lose, I will also give you the shares of company under my name. How about that? Hearing He Yiming's words, Gao Jianda frowned. He didn't expect the other party to have such a big appetite. The shares of a company were worth hundreds of millions of yuan a year. But when he saw He Yiming's confident look, Gao Jianda hesitated, then nodded and said, I'll bet with you. Okay, it's a deal. He Yiming couldn't help laughing and said, Mr. Gao, you will lose this time. I don't think so. Gao Jianda smiled slightly. I said, you will know how powerful Mr. Li is. He Yiming shook his head. Mr. Gao, don't you know my character? I regard money as my life. If I take out the shares of a company to bet, I naturally have 100% confidence. Since Li Changsheng can defeat Nailin Yuding, I naturally won't underestimate him. Then do you know where my confidence comes from? Gao Jianda couldn't help frowning. He was really a little curious. This He Yiming was superb with guns, like a reckless man, but Gao Jianda knew that the other party was very smart and never did a losing deal. Since he said so, he must have confidence in himself. He Yiming laughed out loud, laughing so hard that he almost held his stomach. Mr. Gao, you are known as Ghost Fox, undoubtedly wise, but you lost your cool when you met this Mr. Li. To tell you the truth, I installed many cameras in this back garden in advance, the kind with no blind spots. As for the 6 generals I sent out, each of them can see every inch of this backyard through their phones. This is equivalent to playing a gunfight game. They have cheated and can know the location of their opponents at any time. Then, they can use their sniper rifles to eliminate their opponents in one shot. In this situation, do you still think Mr. Li can win? Gao Jianda listened and couldn't help but be stunned. Finally, he sighed and said, I didn't expect you to be so deliberate in a game. He Yiming smiled and said, What's wrong, Mr. Gao? Now you feel sorry for your shares? Gao Jianda shook his head. I'm different from you. I don't really value money as much as my life. Although it's painful to lose 100 million worth of shares, since I've lost. I'm just sighing. With Mr. Li's strength, he shouldn't have lost, but you used such a cheat-like method to deal with him. He'll lose so unjustly. But you've put in so much effort just to win my company's shares? Of course not. He Yiming shook his head. I just want to prove to you and the big boss that this Mr. Li is not omnipotent, nor is he a god. He may be able to maintain his appearance for more than 30 years, but this is not a big deal. As far as I know, many health cultivation methods can do it. I just want to wake the big boss up and not be fooled by him. But what if Mr. Li wins? Gao Jinda suddenly said, "Impossible. No matter how high this Li Chongqing's kung fu is, he will definitely lose, unless he can fly into the sky. I'm just saying what if. There's no what if. Mr. Li should have been eliminated by now." He Yiming threw the cigarette in his hand to the ground and stepped on it to extinguish it. The moment to witness victory was about to come. He Yiming couldn't help but feel proud. Ever since Li Chongqing appeared, he had been holding his breath. It was only now that this breath was completely released. However, just as a smile appeared on his face, he saw a figure appear not far away, looking at him with a smile. "Li Chongqing, how did you find this place? Weren't you eliminated?" After He Yiming saw Li Chongqing, he had a bad feeling in his heart, but he still asked, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. The ones eliminated are your 6 generals. Their sniping skills are too poor. They can't even aim at a person for a long time. I had to let them withdraw from the competition first." "Impossible." He Yiming shook his head, his face full of disbelief. At this moment, several figures appeared. They were his subordinates. Those people were dejected. One of them said, "Director, we lost." He Yiming's body suddenly trembled, but then his face showed a ruthless expression. "They lost, but He Yiming, am still here. Do you think I'm called the Spear God for nothing?" He Yiming took out the imitation pistol as fast as he could and aimed at Li Chongqing. However, when he was about to pull the trigger, he felt a chill between his eyebrows. He was hit by a paintball. He was eliminated. "I actually lost." He Yiming's face was full of disbelief. Facing Li Chongqing, he didn't even have a chance to shoot. He was defeated in the field he was best at. At this time, Qiyu and a few other higher-ups also came over. They shook their heads and said, "Yiming, you've gone mad. You installed cameras in the garden and carefully planned this game. I don't want to criticize you. Go back to your own home tomorrow and reflect for a while. When you've thought it through, come out and help me." "Big boss." He Yiming wanted to explain something, but Qiyu shook his head and said to Li Chongqing, "Mr. Li, I'm sorry." Li Chongqing smiled and said, "It's okay. I just want to stretch my muscles." Li Chongqing, Qiyu, and the others left. He Yiming sat on the rockery next to him. Today's failure was undoubtedly a huge blow to him. Qiyu's words seemed to be not reproaching him, but it was equivalent to letting him stay away from the center of power. Alas, Gao Jinda shook his head and didn't know what to say. He just patted He Yiming on the shoulder and then left the back garden. Back then, Nailin Yuding had offended Li Chongqing in Qingzhou and even lost her life in the end. Now, He Yiming's ending was actually good. This was also because he didn't mean to hurt Li Chongqing from beginning to end, so Qiyu let him go. The next day, before leaving the Qi family, He Yiming asked Qiyu to give him the video of yesterday's battle. He stayed in the room for a whole hour and watched all the video carefully, not letting go of any details. When He Yiming came out of the room, there was fear in his eyes. He bowed to the courtyard where Li Chongqing lived and said loudly, "He Yiming is convinced of my defeat." Several executives who were close to him came out to see him off. They asked him curiously what he saw. He just sighed and said, "Gao Jinda is right. He is an immortal." After that, he walked out of the courtyard with a lonely face, leaving a group of friends who were puzzled. Chapter 408. There was always a festive atmosphere during the new year. After 12 o'clock, Li Chongqing's phone kept ringing. It was a congratulatory message from someone he knew. The next morning, Li Chongqing ran a few laps around Qiyu's mansion. After eating the dumplings in the morning, the previous year had become history. The school reopened on March 5th, the 18th of the first lunar month. Li Chongqing returned to Qingzhou a few days in advance. Compared to Qiyu's house, his villa was much more deserted. Yu Youwei's family returned to their hometown in Medicine King Valley, so Li Chongqing spent most of his time in the villa cultivating. When school reopened, life didn't seem to have changed much. However, The dormitory was empty. Jiang Tao, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Yang Fan all chose to do their internships. Later, Li Changsheng didn't stay in the dormitory and moved back to his villa. A week after school reopened, the dormitory manager told Li Changsheng that there was a letter for him. Even Li Changsheng, who was used to the convenience of the internet era, was surprised that someone would write to him. Li Changsheng was quite surprised. The address on the envelope was from Beijing. When he opened it, it was an invitation to Mr. Li Changsheng. Solemnly, March 9th, Jingwu Year, Agricultural Calendar. Wang Shuo and by Qian Xue's wedding banquet. Please honor us with your presence. Seeing this invitation, Li Changsheng's face couldn't help but sink. What does this Wang Shuo mean? He's gonna marry by Qian Xue, but he actually sent me an invitation to show off. Is he deliberately mocking me? Li Changsheng took a deep breath, smiled, and waved at the guard, and then walked out of the dormitory. He stood outside the dormitory and looked at the people coming and going. He only felt that the sun was particularly dazzling. My girlfriend is getting married, but the groom isn't me. This is definitely a pain in the ass. What's even more painful is that the other party sent him an invitation. This is the rhythm of slapping his face until his teeth fall out. Li Changsheng walked out of the campus and took a taxi to the railway station. He opened WeChat and sent a voice message to Jiang Tao, who was currently interning in Beijing, saying, "Get ready to pick me up. I'm going to Beijing to seek shelter with you." Since the other party had sent an invitation, Li Changsheng felt that it wasn't a big deal for him to attend. Although the other party might just want to show off a little, it was impolite not to reciprocate. After being mocked, it wasn't Li Changsheng's style to not respond. It took an hour to get to the train station from school, and 3 hours to get to Beijing by train. Therefore, when Li Changsheng walked out of the train station alone without any luggage, it was already 3 in the afternoon. Jiang Tao, who was wearing fashionable clothes, greeted Li Changsheng from afar. He smiled and said, "Changsheng, you are really swift and decisive. You came to the capital just like that. But this brother has been waiting for you for a long time." Zhang Xiaofeng and Yang Fan are also interning in Beijing, but those two guys are a little scared. They only interned for a few days and didn't dare to ask for leave. I can only see them after work at 5. After exiting the train station, he got into Jiang Tao's 7 Series BMW. Jiang Tao then asked in confusion, "Changsheng, did you really come to Beijing to hang out with your brothers?" He knew that with Li Changsheng's identity, he didn't need an internship. It was just that Li Changsheng came so suddenly that he couldn't figure out what was going on. "Do you still remember Bai Qianxue?" "Of course, the campus belle of Shanqing University. Isn't she your girlfriend?" "She used to be, but not anymore. She's getting married, and she gave me an invitation." Li Changsheng said this sentence with incomparable calmness. Jiang Tao, on the other hand, was already very angry as he slapped the steering wheel. "This is too much. Isn't this the same as giving someone a slap on the left side of their face? Also, this Bai Qianxue is too blind. Changsheng, where else could she find someone with your family background? All right, who is the person she is marrying?" "The son of the Wang family in Beijing, Wang Sha." Li Changsheng lightly spat out these few words. Jiang Tao suddenly fell into silence. In the end, he could only curl his lips. The Wang family in Beijing, no wonder. Halfway through the journey, the car suddenly braked and stopped. Jiang Tao turned his head and anxiously said, "Changsheng, don't tell me you came to Beijing to do something irrational?" The Wang family is known as one of the 4 major families in Beijing. Looking at Jiang Tao's worried face, Li Changsheng slightly smiled. "Don't worry, I won't be impulsive." "That's good." Jiang Tao let out a long sigh of relief. "But is the 4 major families that great? I want to meet them." At this moment, Jiang Tao's originally relaxed heart was once again raised. Sure enough, this roommate of his didn't come to Beijing with good intentions. "Changsheng, my family has a villa in Beijing. Stay at my place tonight. Don't worry, it's just me, so don't be afraid of disturbing me," Jiang Tao said while driving. "No, I heard that the Wang family has prepared a wedding of the century for the newlyweds. All the guests have been arranged in a 5-star hotel. I have an invitation, so I'll stay there. Jiang Tao's hands couldn't help but tremble as he drove. Then let's contact Yang Fan first. Let's get together first. Jiang Tao felt that when the time came, Yang Fan and Zhang Xiaofeng could persuade Li Changsheng together and see if they could change his mind. Who knew that Li Changsheng would still shake his head? No. I heard that the Bai family has also arrived in Beijing. Today, they are hosting a banquet at the Blu-ray Hotel. I'll just eat there. Jiang Tao's face revealed a bitter smile. He thought to himself, this Li Changsheng really has steeled his heart. It's just that the capital is the Wang clan's territory. If Li Changsheng goes against the Wang clan, won't he be at a disadvantage? The car drove to the entrance of the Blu-ray Hotel. On the hotel's huge LED screen, the picture of Wang Shuo and Bai Qinxue was playing on a loop. In the picture, Wang Shuo was flushed with success while Bai Qinxue was shy and sweet. They really looked like a perfect match. Jiang Tao parked the car in the parking lot. Li Changsheng said that there was no need to send him inside. When the matter at hand was done, he would go find them. Jiang Tao sighed helplessly. Walking into the hotel, the waiter at the door learned that Li Changsheng was here to attend the Bai family's banquet. He directly led Li Changsheng to the most luxurious hall inside. It was said that the Bai family planned to hold the wedding banquet of the man and woman together, so the Bai family came to Beijing early. Today's banquet was mainly for the Bai family to invite their relatives and friends to eat in advance to get to know each other. It was a small family gathering. The Bai family was a big family. There were a lot of people, including the 7 aunts and 8 aunts. When Li Changsheng walked in, many people just thought that he was a junior. Old Master Bai Guangyuan, was surrounded by a group of relatives with a smile on his face. Second Master Bai Jinbin was responsible for greeting the relatives who came and went. The moment Li Changsheng entered Bai Jinbin's line of sight, the smile on Bai Jinbin's face suddenly froze. Bai Qinxue's aunt, Bai Ruolin, and Bai Qinxue's cousin, Bai Mingtang, were also stunned at the same time. Just when the guests in the room didn't know what had happened, they saw Bai Guangyan, who was talking with a few juniors, suddenly stand up with a somewhat complicated expression on his face. He said, Changsheng, why are you here? Chapter 409. Li Changsheng stood at the door of the hall. Everyone in the Bai family came to their senses and walked up to him, especially Bai Guangyuan, the old master, whose voice was trembling. Who is he? The relatives of the Bai family were discussing and guessing Li Changsheng's identity. Changsheng, Qinxue, Bai Guangyuan wanted to say something, but stopped. It's okay. I'm not here to see her. I'm just here to take a look. Li Changsheng looked at the people of the Bai family. They used to treat him as family when they saw him. But now, as Bai Qinxue and Wang Shua's wedding was finalized, they seemed to be pushed further and further apart by an invisible force and became more and more unfamiliar. Finally, someone suddenly exclaimed, Isn't he Qinxue's ex-boyfriend? Such a voice quickly spread in the hall. In just half a minute, it had reached the point where everyone knew about it. Countless people looked at Li Changsheng with complicated, mocking, and curiosity. What is he doing here? Is he here to make trouble? It's impossible between him and Qinxue. In the countless discussions, a middle-aged woman, who was called Aunt Bai Qinxue by blood, finally stood up and pointed at Li Changsheng and said loudly because she was close to the main branch of the Bai family. Qinxue has nothing to do with you. How can you still be so thick-skinned to show up here? If I were you, I would hide in a corner and no one would see me. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Even if you kneel down and beg Qinxue, she won't like you anymore. Her voice was sharp and mean. The hall fell into a few seconds of silence. The middle-aged woman thought that she had done something satisfying. Since Bai Guangyuan and the others were too embarrassed to do it, she would do it. So at this moment, the woman was very proud, but her pride didn't last long. Bai Guangyan turned around and slapped her face. Slap. The sound was crisp, and he used a lot of strength. The woman's voice stopped abruptly, and a palm print immediately swelled up on her face. With this slap, the woman was stunned, and so were the guests. It's not up to you to judge whether Changsheng is good or bad. Bai Guangyuan said coldly. As for Wang Shuo, this son-in-law of the Wang clan was very outstanding. He also treated Bai Qinxue well, so the old man was quite satisfied. However, the old man could not see Li Changsheng as an enemy just because of Wang Shuo. The Bai clan was indebted to Li Changsheng after all, and it had an extraordinary significance. Not only Bai Guangyin, but even Bai Jinbin, Bai Ruolin, and the others felt that the old man's slap was very satisfying. Why did you hit me? The middle-aged woman was stunned for a long time before she reacted. Her face was full of grievance. She could not understand. She was clearly helping the Bai family and mocking this kid who had come to cause trouble. Wasn't she saying what old Master Bai wanted to say? Why did I hit you? Since when did an outsider like you have the right to interfere in our family matters? Bai Jinbin said coldly. Many people noticed the words in his words. Family, outsiders. Could it be that Li Changsheng was part of his family and his blood-related cousin had become an outsider? Many people could not understand. However, old Master Bai's next action gradually made them understand what was going on. Bai Guangyuan took Li Changsheng's hand and said, Changsheng, come and have a drink with me. I'm very happy that you can come today. No matter who Qinxue marries, you, Li Changsheng, will always be part of the Bai family. The Bai family owes you, and we can never repay you in this lifetime. The old man tugged at Li Changsheng a few times, but Li Changsheng stood there unmoving. Old master, I'm just here to take a look. I won't drink with you. With that, he gently broke away from old Master Bai's hand and turned to walk out of the hall. For Li Changsheng, this trip was not in vain. At least the Bai family's conscience was not eaten by dogs. When Li Changsheng walked out of the hall, Bai Guangyuan said regretfully to himself, Changsheng is a good child. I always thought that he was my ideal grandson-in-law. It's Qinshue's loss to miss him. After coming out of the banquet hall, Li Changsheng suddenly calmed down. Originally, he had resentment in his heart for this trip to Beijing. However, the moment he saw old Master Bai, this resentment was weakened a lot. After all, the Bai family did nothing wrong, and Bai Qinxue did nothing wrong. For the Bai family, all of this was Bai Qinshue's decision. They had a powerful in-law, which was very beneficial for the development of the entire family. For Bai Qinxue, she just chose a man who she thought was a good son-in-law. She made a choice that countless women would make. Li Changsheng was only hurt emotionally. In fact, he did not lose much. The only thing he could not get over was his own heart. The only detestable one was the young master of the Wang family. However, was he going to destroy him just because of flaunting invitation? Was he going to let the Wang family collapse and Bai Qinxue lead a miserable life after a wedding? Li Changsheng thought about it. There's really no need. He shook his head and walked out of the hotel. He called Jiang Tao and asked him to pick him up. Squatting on the steps in front of the hotel, he lit a cigarette and smoked silently. He did not know what he was feeling at the moment. He only felt that it was suffocating. When the smoke entered his stomach, it was a bitter taste. When he finished smoking the sixth cigarette, Jiang Tao's 7 Series BMW stopped in front of him. Li Changsheng patted the cigarette ash off his body and sat in the car. In the parking lot, after Jiang Tao's BMW had completely left, a red Audi's window slowly rolled down, revealing a slightly pale but incomparably beautiful face. Bai Qinxue. Her face was still as beautiful as before, but there was a hint of maturity in her beauty. She looked at the place where Li Changsheng was squatting. Looking at the cigarette but on the ground, her heart ached slightly. This man also brought her many beautiful memories. When she was at her most lost, he stood up and protected her, sheltering her from the wind and rain. She vaguely remembered the feeling of safety when he held her hand. However, things had changed with the passage of time. Now, he belonged to someone else. When she chose to unbutton her shirt in front of Wang Shuo, she had already decided to completely draw a line with Li Changsheng and have nothing to do with him. We can only blame ourselves for not being fated to be together. Bai Qinxue sighed. She looked at the photo of her sweet face on the big screen of the hotel and Wang Shuo's warm eyes. She muttered to herself, "People walk to higher places, water flows to lower places. I just made a decision that most women would make. Li Changsheng is far less excellent than Wang Shuo, isn't he?" Chapter 410. In the BMW, Jiang Tao did not dare to ask Li Changsheng what happened inside, fearing that it would agitate Li Changsheng. Along the way, he chatted with Li Changsheng. Looking at his watch, it was almost 5 o'clock, so he hurriedly called Zhang Xiaofeng and Yang Fan, telling them to go together. Li Changsheng was silent the whole way. It would be a lie to say that by Qianqua's matter had no effect on him. No matter how long he lived, he would still be a person of flesh and blood, a pure heart and few desires, without joy or sorrow. This was a realm that Li Changsheng had never reached. Cultivation, cultivation, cultivation. If there was no human emotion, it would be meaningless in Li Changsheng's eyes. They drove directly to a hotel. After getting out of the car, a fashionable young man had obviously been waiting for a long time. Jiang Tao introduced Li Changsheng to his friend in Beijing, Tang Bo, who was also a rich second generation. Looking at the keys in his hand, he drove a Mercedes-Benz. The other party smiled and greeted Li Changsheng, saying that a banquet had been prepared. Jiang Tao's friend was his friend. The other party had a very talkative personality, belonging to the type of person who was very familiar with others. Although Li Changsheng's clothes were very ordinary, the other party did not show the slightest contempt. Birds of a feather flocked together. Being able to get along well with Jiang Tao, his character would not be bad. The few of them entered the restaurant and sat down. Because Yang Fan and Zhang Xiaofeng had not arrived yet, they first asked the waiter to serve a pot of tea and chatted while drinking. According to Jiang Tao's introduction, the other party was his high school classmate. When they were in school, they lived on the upper and lower bunk beds in the dormitory. Tang Bo studied in a third-rate university in Beijing. Jiang Tao also came to Beijing, so the two of them often met. Tang Bo was a talkative person. Even though Li Changsheng did not like to talk much, he quickly became familiar with Li Changsheng. Half an hour later, Yang Fan and Zhang Xiaofeng appeared and gave Li Changsheng a big hug. After sitting down, Jiang Tao asked the waiter to serve the dishes. Obviously, it was not the first time Zhang Xiaofeng and Tang Bo met, so they did not have any scruples. It's boring for a few men to drink. Why don't I find a few girls? Tang Bo didn't wait for Li Changsheng and the others to respond. He stood up and went out to make a phone call. When he came back, he was beaming with joy. It was obvious that the girl he spoke of gave him face. Not long after, the two women that Tang Bo had called had arrived. One of them was wearing a pink dress called Zhong Xin. She took the initiative to raise her wine glass as soon as she sat down. She belonged to the cheerful type. After being introduced, they found out that she was Tang Bo's girlfriend. Jiang Tao couldn't help but laugh as he punched Tang Bo's arm and said, "You brat, why did you call us to introduce us to girls? So you came here to show off." Tang Bo burst into laughter. The other was more introverted. Her name was Lin, and she looked gentle and quiet. She gave off the vibe of a pretty girl from a humble family. Zhong Xin hurriedly helped her boyfriend out of the situation and said, "My best friend next to me, Lin, doesn't have a boyfriend yet. You all have a chance." With the addition of the two women, the atmosphere really changed. It was just that there were a lot of dirty jokes, but it wasn't good to say them in front of girls. After chatting for a while, they found out that Tang Bo's girlfriend, Zhong Xin, was actually a top student at Huaqing University. Lin, who wasn't good with words, was also a classmate of hers. This made the few people present couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for the two women. Tang Bo was also proud of being able to find such a highly educated girlfriend. During the meal, he drank a few more glasses. He went over and put his arm around Li Changsheng's shoulder and said, "You must have fun in Beijing. If there's anything, I'll cover you." After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Tang Bo took the initiative to suggest going to a bar to play. Jiang Tao wanted to let Li Changsheng relax, so he strongly agreed. As for Zhang Xiaofeng and Yang Fan, they had been interning in the company for the past few days. Because they were newcomers, they were quite oppressed and in high spirits. Originally, the girl called Lin Ying didn't want to go, but she couldn't stand her best friend Zhong Xian's constant persuasion. In the end, after they paid the bill, they majestically rushed to a nearby bar. Tang Bo should be a regular here. As soon as they entered, the manager came up to them and gave them an extra bottle of red wine, making Tang Bo feel very proud. After entering, they went to a slightly remote place and sat down. Under Jiang Tao's instructions, Tang Bo arranged for Lin Ying and Li Changsheng to sit together. "You're Tang Bo's friend?" Lin Ying took the initiative to talk to Li Changsheng. In the restaurant, she found that Jiang Tao and the others' attitude towards Li Changsheng was obviously different, which made her a bit curious. "I'm a classmate of Jiang Tao and Zhang Xiaofeng's dorm," Li Changsheng replied. "Then which university are you studying in?" Lin Ying asked. "Is it also in Beijing?" Li Changsheng shook his head. "I'm studying in Qingzhou University." Because the two of them were relatively introverted, after a few words, they fell into silence. At this time, not long after they sat down, several figures came over. "I say, brat, you came to a nightclub and didn't even say hello to us." 3 tall young men came over. All of them were quite handsome. "Everywhere I go, I can see you guys." Tang Bo laughed and introduced them to Li Changsheng, Wu Liang, Zhao Pengjiu, Han Shuwen. Wu Liang was a bespectacled man. He looked quiet and scholarly. Zhao Pengjiu was the most handsome of the 3. He was also the tallest and had long hair. Han Shuwen was more ordinary. His body was thicker and his muscles were more developed. Tang Bo introduced Jiang Tao, Li Changsheng, and the others to Wu Liang and the others, and they greeted each other. Then, Wu Liang and the others returned to their seats. They sat not far from Li Changsheng and the others. There were more than 10 people, both men and women, and it was very lively. "Changsheng, come, let's have a toast." Jiang Tao knew that Li Changsheng was in a bad mood today, and seemed to deliberately let Li Changsheng drink more to forget his troubles. Because Wu Liang and the others knew Tang Bo, it was inevitable that their group would pay more attention to this place. Especially when Wu Liang came to propose a toast. He learned that Lin Ying, this quiet beauty, was still single. When he brought this news back, a few men who didn't know Tang Bo also took the initiative to talk to him. In the end, the two groups simply joined together to have fun. Zhao Pengjiu was especially interested in Lin Ying. Taking advantage of the time, when Li Changsheng went to the bathroom, he unkindly took Li Changsheng's seat and talked to Lin Ying, which made Jiang Tao frown. At around 10 o'clock, the bar was completely lively. Because his seat was taken, Li Changsheng could only sit between Jiang Tao and Tang Bo. Tang Bo patted Li Changsheng's shoulder and said with the smell of alcohol, "Brother, it seems that your level is not good enough." That Zhao Pengjiu took the lead. "But it doesn't matter. I'll introduce you to another one another day." Li Changsheng smiled and said, "No need. We all came out to play. I didn't think too much." Chapter 411. Jiang Tao kept toasting Li Changsheng, but he didn't drink too much. Instead, he drank himself to the point of staggering. Tang Bo and Li Changsheng bumped into each other twice, and then spent most of the time whispering to his girlfriend, Zhong Xian. Obviously, the two had just confirmed their relationship and were stuck together like glue. In Wu Yang's circle, there was a woman who wore smoky makeup. She considered herself as a big sister and was very forthright in drinking. In fact, it wasn't difficult to see that her appearance was above 70 points, but she had put on too much makeup and gave people the feeling of a delinquent girl. She was forthright in drinking and seemed to be unconventional in other aspects. There were 2 boys who took advantage of the alcohol and quietly took advantage of her, but she didn't care. He didn't know why he suddenly noticed Li Changsheng. He raised his wine bottle and shouted, "Little brother, is this your first time coming to this kind of place? Although a man's silence is golden, aren't you a bit too boring?" Therefore, all eyes were focused on Li Changsheng. "Come, have a drink," the girl said casually. Li Changsheng actually didn't have a good impression of this kind of girl who was too open. However, since the other party raised their glass, he couldn't be too disrespectful. Therefore, he also picked up the bottle and took a symbolic sip. The girl gulped down the bottle of beer. It caused a burst of cheers. The other party looked at Li Changsheng with disdain and said, "A man doesn't have a bit of manliness. I'm a man. Why don't you drink with me?" Intending to show off in front of Lin Yin, Zhao Pengju took the initiative to stand up and clinked glasses with the smoky makeup girl. He also drank one bottle at a time. The smoky makeup girl smiled and said, "That's more like a man." It made Zhao Pengju feel that he was quite in the limelight. He glanced at Li Changsheng, who was sitting there with a bit of pride. The only thing that made him regret was that Lin Yin just smiled very implicitly. Obviously, she didn't appreciate this kind of drinking behavior. Probably because he drank a bottle of beer, Zhao Pengju stood up and staggered to the bathroom. However, when he left the table, his expression was obviously hesitant. Just now, he took the opportunity to take Li Changsheng's seat. He was really afraid that when he came back, Li Changsheng would take it back. However, he was obviously thinking too much. Li Changsheng's face was indifferent from beginning to end. When a thin guy passed by Li Changsheng's table, he was attracted by Lin Yin's temperament. He came up to her with a smile and said, "Beauty, can I have a drink with you?" Lin Yin had been an obedient girl since she was young. Although she had been hit on countless times because of her beauty, Lin Yin didn't know how many people had hit on her. However, the other party's invasive gaze made her feel very uncomfortable, and she hurriedly shook her head to refuse. Who would have thought that under the influence of alcohol, the other party wouldn't give up and insisted that Lin Yin add him on WeChat? Lin Yin refused once again, a small in turn, under the influence of A's, under the influence of A, of that, under the effect of Teat. To the end. Get the hell out of here. The guy was already upset that he was rejected by the beauty. Being pushed by Zhao Pengju made him even angrier. He only compared the height difference between him and Zhao Pengju and didn't dare to make a move. He only cursed a few times. Seeing that the guy was a little scared, Zhao Pengju was even more high-spirited. He lifted his leg and kicked the guy to the ground. He picked up a beer bottle on the table and pointed it at the guy's nose. He glared and yelled, "If you have the guts, I'll smash your head open with this beer bottle." The guy was a little scared by Zhao Pengju's aura. He yelled, "Just you wait." Then he scrambled away. Zhao Pengju walked back to his seat and sat down. The men and women at the table all gave him a thumbs up. The woman with smoky makeup even shouted, "Brother, you're so manly and domineering." This made Zhao Pengju feel even more smug. Lin Yin didn't say anything. Although she felt that it was a little inappropriate to cause trouble in a place like a bar, her attitude towards Zhao Pengju had obviously changed. This made Zhao Pengju feel even more radiant. Li Changsheng just sat there and didn't say anything. Jiang Tao drank a little too much. He put his arm around Li Changsheng's shoulder and talked to Li Changsheng. But as he talked, the topic was brought to him. The poor had their worries, the rich had their worries. Jiang Tao, who was born with a silver spoon, also had a lot of worries and grievances. Under the influence of alcohol, he poured out the worries that had accumulated in his heart. Looking at the time, it was already 11 o'clock. Zhang Xiaofeng had to go to work tomorrow, and several students had classes in the morning. He planned to stop here and end today's craziness. But before he could get up, he saw a group of aggressive, strong men rush in and go straight to where Li Changsheng and the others were. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the bar. Tang Bo and the others were at a loss. When they saw the skinny guy leading the way, they suddenly realized Zhao Pengju, who was bragging that he went to the gym every day and could beat 7 or 8 strong men, suddenly stopped. The wine glass in his hand fell on the table with a thud sound. The leader was a short guy, but he was especially muscular. He looked more intimidating than Han Shuwen, who was the most muscular among them. "Brother Zheng, it's this group of people." The skinny man pointed at Li Changsheng's table and said to the muscular man who was leading the group. The muscular man, who was set off by several strong men behind him, looked particularly imposing. He walked to the table, glanced at everyone's faces, and then said loudly, Who bullied my little brother just now? Instantly, the boys who were bragging and bragging just now were all silenced. They were just students. How could they have seen such a big formation? The trouble was caused by Zhao Pengju. Everyone subconsciously looked at Zhao Pengju. Looking at the situation, Zhao Pengju hesitated for a moment and stood up. Big brother, what happened just now might be a misunderstanding. F***CK your misunderstanding. The skinny guy held his breath. Now that he had the upper hand, he raised his hand and slapped. Pa! Because of the difference in height, his slap was barely enough. The strength was not much. However, being slapped in the face in public was undoubtedly extremely humiliating. Zhao Pengju's face suddenly turned red. Just as he was about to get angry, he saw a dagger in the muscular man's hand. He was playing with it. In an instant, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. His anger was completely extinguished. In the next moment, the skinny guy slapped him again. What? You want to fight back? After being slapped twice, Zhao Pengju wanted to find a mouse hole to hide in. The key was that Han Shuwen and Wu Liang, who he usually called brothers in the basketball team, also lowered their heads and leaned back. He did not have the courage to fight with the fierce man at all. After a long silence, he finally smiled and said, "Brother, you've hit and scolded me. Please be magnanimous and let me go." Zhao Pengju's surrender seemed to be expected. However, Lin Yin's eyes were a little complicated. Although Zhao Pengju's handsomeness was still a distance away from being her boyfriend's standard, at least she did not hate him. However, his humility disappointed her. Chapter 412. It's good that you know you're wrong. How about this? I won't make things difficult for you. Kneel down and apologize to my brother, and this matter will be over. The muscular man said coldly. Kneel down and kowtow. Zhao Pengju's face was very ugly. It was one thing to be slapped twice, but it was too humiliating to be forced to kneel. Big brother, it's fine to let my brother apologize, but there's no need to kowtow. At this time, Tang Bo stood up. People said that rich people were overbearing. Tang Bo was a rich second generation. Although he hadn't been in the capital for long, his family and himself had built up some connections, so he dared to stand up at this time. The muscular man looked Tang Bo up and down. An experienced person could judge the identity of the other party by his temperament. For example, Tang Bo was not an ordinary student at this moment. So the muscular man spoke to Tang Bo politely. "Brother, everything has a cause and effect. My brother was beaten by your friend first. When he kicked my brother, why didn't he think of being merciful? So he has to kowtow." This, Tang Bo looked at Zhao Pengju helplessly and thought, "Look at you. You're too pretentious. You provoked such a difficult person." But after all, he was his friend. He couldn't ignore it. So he said, "Big brother, it's my friend's fault. Can you change the punishment?" The muscular man was still smiling a moment ago, but his face suddenly changed color. "Change your head. I'm giving you face by talking to you nicely. Don't you understand my words? If you talk nonsense again, I'll beat you up too." Because Tang Bo's family was rich, he had never been pointed at and scolded by others. He was about to get angry when the muscular man suddenly threw the dagger in his hand and nailed it on the table in front of Tang Bo. It was less than 2 centimeters away from Tang Bo's hand on the table. Tang Bo was so scared that he shivered. If the dagger was a little bit off, it would have pierced a hole in his palm. The words that were about to come out of his mouth couldn't be said anymore. In an instant, the whole table fell into silence. Zhao Pengju hesitated for a moment and knelt on the ground with a plop, apologizing to the skinny man. The skinny man couldn't help but laugh. "That's more like it. You've kowtowed and apologized. You should leave now, right?" Lin Yin said coldly. "Leave? Who said I'm leaving?" The muscular man chuckled. "This little girl is quite pretty. Do you want to have a drink with Brother Fei?" Scram. Lin Yin's face was ice cold. "She has quite a temper." Brother Fei laughed. "It's just that you even dare to scold Brother Fei. Little girl, if you scold me, you won't be able to leave so easily today." As soon as he finished speaking, the few burly men behind him grinned maliciously and pressed forward. A sense of helplessness rose in Lin Yin's heart. She looked around for help. Unfortunately, when they were drinking, the righteous boys lowered their heads so much that they almost buried their heads in their pants. Jiang Tao had already sobered up from his drunkenness. He looked at Li Changsheng and asked, "What about Changsheng?" He knew Li Changsheng's strength. These gangsters didn't take him seriously at all. Therefore, Jiang Tao, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Yang Fan were the calmest three people on the scene. Originally, Li Changsheng didn't want to meddle in other people's business. Unexpectedly, this muscular man forced Zhao Pengju to kneel in front of him and didn't intend to leave. He began to have ideas about Lin Yin. He was really pushing his luck. Hearing Jiang Tao's words, he stood up directly. "Friend, don't go too far. Don't go too far." Seeing Li Changsheng stand up, the others on the table were surprised. Because no matter how they looked at it, it was not Li Changsheng's turn to stand up. And the muscular man was also stunned. He thought, there is really someone who is not afraid of death. There was some surprise in Lin Yin's eyes. The muscular man, showed a bit of an evil smile on his face and said, "Today, I must take this girl away. Then there's nothing to say." Li Changsheng smiled. Suddenly, he stepped on the table and leaped high into the air. A swift and fierce knee directly hit the muscular man's chest from above. The muscular man was knocked back 3 steps. After Li Changsheng landed, he rushed up and pressed the muscular man's head against the pillar behind him. It was a dazzling display of fists. When he released his hand, the muscular man's face was already covered with blood. The other few muscular men reacted at this time and wanted to rush up. They saw Li Changsheng grab a wine bottle on the table next to him and smash it against the pillar, revealing the sharp glass shards. He pointed at the several muscular men in front of him and shouted, "Come on, I'll kill whoever comes up." His ferocious expression revealed a hint of coldness. Those muscular men stopped at the same time. It turned out that ruthless people were afraid of unreasonable people, and unreasonable people were afraid of those who didn't care about their lives. Being tall and strong didn't mean that they dared to fight and kill. No one wanted to have a hole in their stomach. It was just that if they were treated like this, it would be too shameful. The scene fell into a stalemate for a while. "Who gave you the courage to make trouble in Boss Meng's place?" At this time, a cold voice sounded. It was a sloppy young man who came out. The young man had dyed yellow hair and looked quite like a non-mainstream person in those years. However, no one dared to underestimate him in the slightest, because there were 20 or 30 people behind him, all of whom looked fierce. So the few muscular men who were originally suppressed by Li Changsheng immediately gave in. The young man waved his hand with a look of disgust. "Get out of here." The brawny men hurriedly took the muscular man, who was still unconscious from the beating, and fled in a fluster. Then the yellow-haired young man walked to Li Changsheng and said, "My boss wants to see you." With that, he pointed to the position upstairs. Sure enough, looking up, there was a middle-aged man who was supporting himself on the railing with both hands. Behind him stood a row of bodyguards wearing sunglasses with a strong aura. Li Changsheng nodded and followed the young man upstairs. "You fight very well." After Li Changsheng went up to the second floor, the man on the railing turned around and looked up and down at Li Changsheng. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that this ordinary-looking young man would have such a fierce side just now. "Not bad." Li Changsheng smiled slightly. "Are you interested in working for me?" The man spoke again, looking at Li Changsheng with a bit of appreciation. "Not interested." Li Changsheng shook his head and turned to walk to the stairs. "Stop. Our boss hasn't let you go yet. Do you know the rules?" The yellow-haired young man said coldly. However, Li Changsheng continued to walk forward as if he didn't hear him at all. "I told you to stop. Didn't you hear me?" The yellow-haired man took a step forward. His palm was like lightning, grabbing Li Changsheng's shoulder. Chapter 413. The yellow-haired young man grabbed Li Changsheng's shoulder with his hand as fast as lightning. But when his hand touched Li Changsheng's shoulder, he felt as if he was grabbing an iron plate. Then he felt a piercing pain from his finger, and a powerful force came along his finger. His body couldn't help but step back 3 steps, and his eyes were full of horror. All these changes happened in the blink of an eye. After the yellow-haired youth retreated, the bodyguards behind the middle-aged man with sunglasses shouted and surrounded Li Changsheng in a semi-encirclement. "Dad, what are you doing?" A voice with a bit of complaint sounded. Lin Ying came up the stairs. "Dad!" Li Changsheng looked up in surprise. The middle-aged man laughed and said, "Good girl, I'm just testing your friend's skill." This time, not only Li Changsheng, but also Jiang Tao and the others downstairs were a bit confused. At this time, Lin Ying went to Li Changsheng and asked, "Are you all right?" Li Changsheng shook his head. Lin Ying breathed a sigh of relief and said with a bit of coquettishness, "Dad, what if you hurt my friend?" "Huh?" The middle-aged man laughed heartily. "If your friend doesn't hurt my men, I'll be praying." At this time, the middle-aged man went to Li Changsheng and took the initiative to reach out his hand. "I'm Lin Jinhua, Lin Yin's father." "Young man, what's your name? You're good at fighting. I admire you." "My name is Li Changsheng." Li Changsheng smiled and said, "Can I go downstairs now?" "Of course." Lin Jinhua nodded with a smile. Then Li Changsheng went downstairs. Jiang Tao and the others were still confused. That middle-aged man should be the owner of this bar, and Lin Ying was the daughter of the owner of this bar. Even Tang Bo couldn't help looking at his girlfriend, Zhong Xin, because Zhong Xin and Lin Ying were classmates in the same dormitory. Zhong Xin shook her head. She didn't know before. Lin Ying had always said that her family ran a business. He didn't expect them to run a bar. On the other side, Zhao Pengju's face turned purple. If he had insisted on not kneeling, Lin Ying would have looked at him in a different light. Lin Yin's father would definitely not stand by and do nothing. However, it was too late for regrets now. He knew that based on his actions just now, there was no hope for him to continue pursuing Lin Ying. Which girl wouldn't want her boyfriend to be a weakling? The music outside was too loud. Lin Jinhua and his daughter went to an office on the 2nd floor and closed the door, isolating themselves from the noise outside. "Lin Ying, you've always been an obedient child from elementary school to high school. Why did you come to a place like this to play?" Lin Jinhua said with a straight face as soon as he entered. Although he ran this kind of entertainment, he had been strict with his daughter since she was young and did not allow her to come to this kind of place. His daughter, Lin Ying, had always been his pride. She had been an excellent student since she was young and had even been recommended to Huaqing University in high school. At this moment, seeing that his daughter had actually come to the nightclub, he had the intention of denouncing her. Lin Ying looked a little scared. She stammered, "It was my classmate who dragged me here. I couldn't refuse." "Sigh. All right." Lin Jinhua looked at his daughter's cowardly look and sighed. "You're lucky that you're here at your own place. What if something happened somewhere else? It's not every time you meet someone like that young man today who's so skilled and willing to stand up for others." After saying that, he remembered the subordinate, Huang Mao, who had been injured by Li Changsheng. Seeing that Huang Mao had been covering his hand, he asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" He didn't even fight back. "Don't tell me you've injured yourself?" He was a little unhappy. Although the other party had saved his daughter and he admired that young man, Huang Mao was still one of his most capable assistants. It was really embarrassing for him that he couldn't even beat a college student. Hearing the boss's words, Huang Mao smiled bitterly and removed his left hand that was covering his right hand. All 5 of his fingers were hanging limply and the joints were badly mangled. It seemed that his fingers had been broken. Seeing Huang Mao's miserable state, Lin Ying covered her mouth and almost screamed out loud. Even Lin Jinhua's pupils constricted. He had been in the underworld for many years and had seen many skilled martial arts masters. However, it was the first time he had seen someone like Li Changsheng who could injure his enemy's hand like that without even seeing him attack. He's so skilled at such a young age. No wonder he rejected my offer. Lin Jinhua took a deep breath and looked at his daughter, Lin Ying. Tell me honestly, how did you get to know this young man? Who is this young man? Indeed, for an entertainment company like him, it was inevitable that people would cause trouble. If it didn't have a strong enough fist, he would have closed down a long time ago. Naturally, In order to gain a foothold, he had made many enemies over the years. Such a powerful person had quietly approached his daughter. If he had any evil intentions, it would be too late for regrets. He's a friend of my best friend. I think he's from Qingzhou and is studying at Qingzhou University. He's about 20 years old. Qingzhou, surnamed Li. Suddenly, Lin Jinhua's face became aghast. Mr. Li of Qingzhou. He killed Qin Hao and his son and conquered the entire Chuzhou city. Why is he here in Jing City? Lin Jinhua couldn't help but let out a wry smile. In just half a year, Li Changsheng had risen to fame and made all the tycoons in Qingzhou and Chuzhou City tremble. Lin Jinhua wanted to recruit Li Changsheng to be his underling. He had overestimated himself. What's wrong, Dad? Lin Yin saw her father lose his composure and was puzzled. Even if Li Changsheng was a hidden martial arts master, his father was also a man who traveled to Jianghu. In the eyes of many people, he was also a big shot. A young man who knew martial arts shouldn't make him lose his composure like this. Hearing his daughter's words, Lin Jinhua finally reacted. He shook his head and said, "It's okay. Your classmate is a bit interesting. You could spend more time with him. If he's around, you can go to some entertainment venues or nightclubs." Then Lin Jinhua paused and added, "Forget it. You should stay away from him and don't interact with him in the future." Lin Yin was stunned by Lin Jinhua's words. What was going on with her father? He told her to interact with him more, but he also told her to stay away from him. Just as Lin Yin was about to ask more questions, she saw Lin Jinhua waved his hand. "Forget it. Let's leave it to fate. Don't mind what I just said. Just treat him as a normal friend." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.